talkSPORT Sports Update, powered by the Nissan van range. Score a winning hat-trick of performance, payload and price. Search Nissan vans or head to your local Nissan van centre.
With your headlines at 10:02, I'm Nick Ellaby. Good morning. Chris Eubank Senior is worried about possible long-term damage his son could suffer down the line after his first fight with Conor Ben. Eubank says it's madness for his son to dehydrate himself to make the catch weight at 11 stone 6. Both fighters went to hospital as a precaution after the first bout, but Conor Ben told talkSPORT he thinks Eubank Jr. only posted about that to get the sympathy vote.
Ultimately, you guys would have never known I was in hospital until I said, oh yeah, we was both in hospital together. You would never have known. I mean...
Ben versus Eubank Jr. The rematch is live on talkSPORT this Saturday night. Both dads, Chris Senior and Nigel, are in the studio with White and Jordan today. Now, we understand Thomas Tuchel's thinking of calling up Trevor Chalobah to replace the injured Mark Gay. England versus Serbia is live on talkSPORT this Thursday night. Tuchel's side have already qualified for the World Cup. The British and Irish Lions say their thoughts are with the family of Mick Lane, who's died at the age of 99. Lane was the oldest surviving Lion, having toured Australia and New Zealand back in 1950. The winger also played 17 tests for Ireland. And 10 days out from the Ashes, with 40,000 England fans expected in Australia, Marcus Trescothick says Barmy Army plans to tease stand-in captain Steve Smith over his sandpaper ban is all part of the game.
Hopefully you get both some sets of supporters will support it in the right fashion, do it in the right way, and hopefully you get some great cricket that's provided that everybody's happy to watch.
There's loads more Ashes build-up on the talkSPORT Cricket YouTube.
talkSPORT News.
The BBC's outgoing boss will address staff today amid a $1 billion lawsuit threat from Donald Trump, and the UK's jobless rates hit its highest level since late 2020. Emma has more in half an hour.
talkSPORT weather with QuickFit. For a limited time only, get 15% off a set of 4 selected premium tyres. Don't miss out and book today at quickfit.com and drive away happy every time. Conditions apply.
Rain moving into the north and west today, heavy at times, while the east will stay dry but cloudy, turning windy, staying mild.
Good morning, everybody. You're listening to Jim White and Simon Jordan, and we are live on talkSPORT. So Liverpool become the latest club to raise concerns with the PGMOL over decision-making. Are we in the era of accountability or complaining for the sake of playing to the gallery? Meantime, how many more chances does Preston's Milutin Osmajić deserve? We hear from their chief executive, Peter Ridsdale, shortly, following the striker's racism ban. Also today, what can you expect from an American World Cup? Is there a win at last for the Player Welfare Brigade? We're bringing the very latest on a host of managerial movements, and our fight week build-up to Eubank Ben continues. With both fathers, the dads are in here this morning. Nigel Ben and Chris Eubank Senior will be joining us right here in studio. It's Jim White and Simon Jordan, and we are live on talkSPORT.
100% engagement.
Jim White and Simon Jordan on talkSPORT.
We are live in talkSPORT, but I don't know about you. We're not even mid-November. I'm all Christmased out.
Oh, dear.
Are you not?
No, because I'm a miserable Grinch. Right? I'm Christmased out by about 1 minute past 7 on Christmas Day morning about Christmas presents. But I've got a 5-year-old son, so the wonder of Christmas in his eyes refreshes this dark and bitter soul of mine.
It's a wonderful time for you because of little Reuben.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, and there's the ghost of Christmas past, Michelle.
Now, the two dads on their way in. Nigel Ben Senior will be Nigel Ben will be joining us live at 11 o'clock, and about 12:30, I think producer Luke, who's nodding at me, we're going to have Chris Eubank Senior in studio as we build up to Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Ben 2 at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium.
So Nigel wanted to go first.
Night.
Can't have Chris Eubank stealing all the thunder like he did last time.
I'm looking forward to it. I know you're not a fan of the sons' fight, but when the dads fought, I take it you tuned in.
Well, I was a massive, massive fan of Nigel Ben's.
Yeah.
You know, as I said to him when I spoke to him when he did up front with me, despite the fact that we had some rancor between us, I can distinguish between the differences of our opinion now and what a wonderful fighter he was. I thought he was one of the most exciting fighters of his generation. I went to a couple of Eubank fights. I went to watch him versus Dan Sherry, and it was a cure for insomnia. And I don't quite hold Chris. I admire him. I think he's a wonderful fighter and achieved wonderful things. But of the two fighters, Nigel Ben was the most exhilarating fighter, I think, of his generation to some extent. There were great fighters in that period of time. We saw them in James Toney that called them both out and called them both bums and beat them on the same night and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. But Nigel Ben, when he came to a fight, when he went to America and bashed up Iran Barkley,
set the place alight.
You know,
and yet Steve Collins beat them both.
At different stages in their career, and Steve did a number on them both, But I still think that period, and I think they recently did a documentary with Frank Bruno and Lennox Lewis about the Four Kings, and they covered all that period and the racism in society, but also their achievements and then the amount of attention they got and how many people watched them.
Oh yeah,
you know, was phenomenal. They would be absolute superstars now.
18. Luke, producer Luke is saying 18 million.
Absolutely,
watched the rematch.
I know. And that was because it was on, I think it was on ITV, wasn't it? And it's terrestrial TV. There wasn't the same choices. Yeah. And that's the wonderful nature of British boxing. It spawns this wonderful support, and these two fighters, polar opposites. On the social scale in some respects.
Well, both on the way in, and both will be sitting to Simon's left at different stages along the way this morning. Boxing producer here at talkSPORT, Ed, has worked well with our producer Luke, and the two dads agreed to come in.
They're all on this gravy train, this cash gravy train that the unfinished business fight produces.
I tell you what, you'll be tuned into it on Saturday night. Of course you will be.
Right, okay.
You can watch it on DAZN. It's live on talkSPORT. It'll be unmissable, in spite of where this.
Except, of course, if you miss it.
So that is to come. A whole lot more to come as well. The chief exec of Preston North End, Peter Ridsdale, will join us shortly. This problem player that they appear to have, the Montenegrin Milutin Osmajić, never away from trouble for very long and in trouble again.
Is he going to defend the indefensible, is he?
Well, I don't know. That remains to be seen. But I tell you what, Simon, as we strive to do every morning on this show, we try to get the main protagonist in any story on air live. And fair dues to you, Peter, for saying yes to joining Simon.
Very good.
And myself.
Absolutely.
So we look forward to that. Simon, I wonder, are we in the era of accountability or complaining for the sake of playing to the gallery? The reason I ask, Liverpool have contacted the PGMOL to raise, quotes, serious concerns about Virgil van Dijk's disallowed goal in Sunday's game at Manchester City. We know what happened. Liverpool saw an equaliser ruled out as Van Dijk's header was chalked off. Andy Robertson was involved in this. He ducked down next to the goalkeeper, wasn't in an offside position, and deemed to be interfering with play. Now, the Premier League's explanation here, the referee's call of offside and no goal to Liverpool, was checked and confirmed by VAR. So you think that should be it, shouldn't it? That should be it. But no. They've now contacted the PGMOL to raise serious concerns. I'll get to that. But this was slot post-match on that goal being disallowed.
This can happen in football. It's not to say for me that it was a clear and obvious for me that it was a wrong decision that this goal was not allowed. But that doesn't. I will not say that because of that we've lost the game, because after 1-1, if City just kept on playing like they did, then we would have struggled in the second half as well.
Liverpool have told the PGMOL that they don't accept that the decision to disallow the goal was arrived at for subjective reasons. I like Ian Ladyman in the Mail. He's a journalist we both like. He says, this is just another club acting in a way that others such as Arsenal, Villa, Forest have done before them. This is the modern culture of sport and the environment in which our big clubs now think, act and talk. To our clubs, no decision is now deemed too insignificant or too marginal to feel utterly aggrieved by. Perspective is gone.
Well, this is an interesting one. The challenge for me, with Slot's perspective, is if it was on the other side of the equation,
yes,
he would be saying, why wasn't that girl disallowed?
Yeah.
And this is the challenge with this argument. Now, we in society spend far too much time running a policy of appeasement on every front in society about the challenges we have with certain communities and what we will tolerate and what we won't tolerate, and a whole raft of other things. And football's had operated the same process. The PGMOL, post the introduction of VAR, under this ridiculous media-created idea that it was going to be 100% accurate. And I don't mean media by broadsheets, I mean pundits in the media that decided that ultimately VAR was going to get it right 100% of the time, and anything beneath that was a failing. So that's now created a culture where we brought in VAR because people weren't happy with outcomes. They felt that refereeing was being massively disadvantaged, wasn't operating at a level because the game had speeded up, because of 360-degree, 7-day-a-week, 24-hour access from the broadcasters had made refereeing an almost impossible job. So they wanted technology. So we brought in technology. We know that there's a marginal gain in better outcomes from technology, but it's not enough because the characterization of VAR is it's a panacea, it cures it all, gets it right every single time, which is just stupid.
Yeah.
Then you've got the situation where you've got the PGMOL trying to make sure that the first generation, second generation, and third generation of VAR is accepted by the football fraternity, rather than smacking them in the mouth and saying, look, people make mistakes.
Yeah, get on with it.
You make mistakes, we make mistakes. Now, the balance is it a referee's job to make a mistake? Who forces them into it? In some instances, simulation and players cheating. But when it comes to a decision which involves no one trying to tackle you or no one trying to push you out of the way like players have when they make mistakes on the ball because they're pressured into it. Someone, Caicedo robbing the fullback the other day is a mistake from the fullback, but he was pressured by Caicedo.
Yeah.
Who pressures the referee? So the dynamic is that referees are not supposed to make mistakes, but there's now seemingly no margin for error in it. And clubs now, left, right and centre, are being given licence to use language about officials that's beyond the policy of transparency and accountability. I've always wanted accountability. I wrote articles 20 years ago about jumpers for goalposts in The Guardian saying, unless we start making referees more accountable and more responsible and answering questions about the reasons why they made mistakes, then we're not going to evolve the game. The second part is about the transparency of it and making it visible to people. But the third part where the balance comes in is the policy of appeasement. When you don't start smacking back clubs and start saying, look, we're all in this together.
Pack it in.
Pack it in. When Nottingham Forest decided to go and get Clattenburg off Gladiators and get him involved with creating outcomes for them because they had a conspiracy theory about what was happening to them, it started a thought process that it's all fair game. And if a club makes some spurious claim against the PGMOL and it's not upheld, they should be fined, like they are sometimes when you try to appeal a disciplinary factor, and the panel come back and say, well, if we review this, we can make it worse. And people went, we're not going to do so many appeals because it could be worse.
It's not just down here though, Simon. Last week in Scotland, Rangers popped out their own statement to hit out at refereeing standards in the Cup semi-final defeat to Celtic. Rangers requested a meeting with the Scottish FA after an incident panel found that the referee Nick Walsh was incorrect to book Celtic's Austin Trusty for a kick on Jack Butland's head, with a decision deemed worthy of a red. It's done. The matter is over. So surely, as soon as the final whistle goes, accept it. This accountability thing is nonsense.
Well, it isn't nonsense if it changes the standards that referees are operating at. And some of the accountability has forced decisions back onto the field that we say that referees are abdicating responsibility. They're allowing VAR to supersede their own eyes. How many times do on-field decisions get upheld when they're called over to a screen?
But what's the point of it? Is this not just playing to the gallery?
No,
this is what it is.
That level of accountability has affected change, right? And change needs to happen because it evolves, otherwise you stand still and go backwards. But this scenario where everything is fair game, there has to be a greater burden. Now, the question would clearly be, and you can't prove it because you'll never have that, that coexisting situation.
Yeah.
I'm willing to wager you a significant bet. If Slot had conceded that goal, the other end, he'd have been complaining about why it wasn't ruled offside. And that's the problem that you've got, is the absolute hypocrisy, the rank hypocrisy in these managers that will not accept. And they'll say it's because we're under a lot of pressure. Oh, so what?
Yeah.
You get well remunerated, you get significant opportunities in life, and ultimately some of it will have things that you don't like. And there needs to be a higher burden on managers that clubs and the FA and the Premier League suggest that they need to stop doing this because it might just bring the game into a space where it starts to bring it into disrepute.
While this is all going on, Preston striker Milutin Osmajić was handed a 9-match ban for racially abusing Burnley's Hannibal Mejbri. As a club, how many chances do you give repeat offenders? The chief exec of Preston, Peter Ridsdale, will join us next. Nigel Ben joins us in studio at 11 o'clock live. Chris Eubank Senior will be joining us in studio around 12:30 as we build up to Eubank Junior Ben 2 this Saturday night live in talkSPORT. And of course, Ben Senior and Eubank Senior coming in here this morning, all part of what DAZN put together for Saturday night. We eagerly look forward to it, don't we, Simon? Yes, we do. Thank you, Simon. Preston North End striker Milutin Osmajić has been handed a 9-match ban for racially abusing Burnley's Hannibal Mejbri. Osmajić was charged by the FA in March for alleged racial abuse, with the incident taking place in the match between Preston and Burnley in February earlier this year. Osmajić strongly denied the charge, but it was found to be proved on the balance of probabilities in a hearing by an independent regulatory commission. And it's a wording of that the top brass at Preston object to. The ban rules him out until after Preston's game away to Stoke on Boxing Day. And you have to remember, this all comes after Osmajić last October was banned for 8 matches and fined £15,000 for biting Blackburn defender Owen Beck in the back, which he admitted. In a statement, Preston have said a number of things, but they also say this: we note that the outcome was determined on the balance of probabilities rather than one that is, quotes, beyond reasonable doubt. So it begs the question this morning, should charges of racism be proven on the balance of probability? The CEO of Preston North End is Peter Ridsdale, and he joins us live. Peter, I want to say, first of all, you've got a busy schedule at the moment. Thanks for joining us. Good morning.
Jim, good morning. Good morning, Simon.
Morning, Pete.
So, Peter, tell me, it's the wording that you are honing in on, are you not? We note that the outcome was determined on the balance of probabilities rather than one that is beyond reasonable doubt. Am I right?
Well, it's the principle, Jim. It's not just the wording on this occasion. You know, we live in a society where we accept totally, and I grew up believing you're either not guilty or you were guilty of something. And to be guilty, you had to be found guilty beyond reasonable doubt. Otherwise, you know, it was innocent until proven guilty. But on this occasion, I sat through the 2 days of the tribunal. I also sat through when the FA investigated earlier before that. We're talking to Militan. And the reality is there's only one person who knows what was said, and that was Militan. There's then a second person who thinks he knows what was said, which was Hannibal, who had his back to Militan in a crowd of 21,000 in a local derby, a lot of noise. So nobody's suggesting Hannibal isn't saying what he thought he heard, but what we're saying is there's only one person who knows. And the 2-day tribunal used lip readers who said they couldn't be certain of what was said. And the FA have said, on balance of probability, we think he probably said a word which included reference to race or colour. And our concern is, and you know, you're spending time talking about it today, of something of this severity, to determine it was on the balance of probability, i.e. the suggestion is we are guessing of what might have been said, we find that dangerous.
Did you know the terms of reference prior to going into the hearing, Peter? Did you know that it was going to be adjudicated based upon those sort of parameters prior to the hearing being heard?
We were told there were 3 potential outcomes, Simon. 1 is not proven, 2 is beyond reasonable doubt, and 3, balance of probabilities. So clearly the FA set the terms, we don't, because it's apparently Section 8 of the FA handbook, and clearly we can't influence that. But having sat through the 2 days, having obviously spoken to Militan, this happened 9 months ago. This took 9 months to get to a conclusion. For somebody to say that there was no independent verification of what was said, there was nobody else on either team, that none of the officials heard what was said. There were 2 people, one of whom said something, clearly, and there's one of whom heard something, who had his back to the person who was talking.
But Peter, with respect, why would Burnley's Hannibal Mejbri say that he was racially abused when in actual fact he hadn't been?
Look, you have to ask him that. And, you know, we're getting into the individual case. The word that Militan consistently, since the second the game finished and he was asked by the officials what he said, sounds like the word that Hannibal accused him of saying, but it was a different word. And all I'm saying is, on the balance of probabilities for something of this severity, surely, whether it be on this occasion or any future occasions, I think that when something is this serious, you have to be in a position where it's either proven beyond reasonable doubt or not proven. But to suggest you're then guessing
Peter,
what might have been said is a problem.
I've known you for years, and I stress I'm really pleased that you took our invitation to come on live. But can you tell us this morning that Osmajić, presumably you were one-to-one with him in your office, when you looked in his eyes and said, "Did you say this?" and he strongly denied that he said it, you believe him?
I do. And the other thing, Jim, that I will stress is from the second the game finished 9 months ago, and of course I work with him every day, not once has he changed his version of events of what he said. Not once.
But I suppose Peter's got to stick to his story, hasn't he?
No, not necessarily, because he understood the severity. And the fact is, when he was accused of biting, which you referred to earlier, he admitted it. He knew he'd done wrong. He accepted he'd done wrong. He genuinely does not believe he's done anything wrong. To that degree, we have said we support the player. And I'm not suggesting Hannibal is accusing him of something that he didn't think he said, because Hannibal had his back to him in a crowd that was screaming and shouting. All I'm saying is, where there's no independent verification of what was said, including lip readers who couldn't tell, to then say, on the balance of probability, we think he probably made reference to one word that Militant said he hasn't said, is a dangerous precedent. That's what we're saying.
Two things, Peter. Do you think he was subjected to a preconceived bias because ultimately he's put himself in front of them previously for bad behaviour? And do you think that the rules in of themselves, because you guys are part of allowing these rules to exist and this governance to exist, do you think that the rules in of themselves governing disciplinary panels need to be changed to it only accepts beyond reasonable doubt?
Well, look, I think on the first one, you're inviting me to almost get an FA charge myself. So I've got to stand one step back and say that, in my view, having sat through the 2 days, had this been beyond reasonable doubt, I don't think any fair-minded people could find him guilty. The fact that you have the option of balance of probability, which means to some extent you are guessing, I think is dangerous in severe cases.
Why is it there, Peter? Why is it there? Why is it there then? If it's dangerous and it's very subjective, why is it there?
I don't know. I mean, you need to ask the FA that, and that's one of the things that we have agreed as a club.
You're involved in the game, Peter. You can ask the FA that.
No,
and as an experienced operator, you've been around long enough, so you can answer it without putting yourself in the way of a charge. And you can have an opinion. I've had an opinion many a times, being in your position where it doesn't involve having a charge. If you think there's an element of preconceived judgment because the player's put himself in front of it, you can say it without being charged for it. And if you think the rule needs to be changed, or more importantly, that the rule itself isn't fit for purpose because it puts people in the way of very subjective decisions, I don't see why you can't say that.
Well, I can certainly answer the second question you just asked, which is, do I believe the rules are wrong? Yes, I do. And in fact, we as a club are going to write to the FA, we've already spoken to the EFL, and lobby for a change where anything of this nature ought to be either not proven or proven beyond reasonable doubt.
Yeah, but Peter, how do you do that? You want it to be beyond reasonable doubt. How do you get to that? You'd have to mic up players, wouldn't you?
Jim, if you were in a court of law on any criminal case, they are the only two potential outcomes.
Yeah, but this is not a court of law.
Yeah, but it has to be held.
And it's a totally different environment.
No, but Jim, it has to be held to the highest standard because this player now is if all intents and purposes, a racist and will suffer from that for the rest of his career, irrespective of whether he did or didn't do it. Are you going to appeal, Peter? Is there an appeal process available to you?
Well, we are waiting for the written reasons to come in, albeit I've seen what the tribunal published last week to us before the sentence. We will have a look on that appeal. I'm told at the moment that unfortunately the appeal can only be a procedural appeal, but as soon as we get it, we will have a look at it. But we are very dissatisfied with the process which allows for what we believe to be essentially an ability to guess, and this is very serious. And as you just pointed out, Militant's reputation, if he said it, and if we believed he said it, we would be the first to be throwing the book at him because we're very proud of our policies as a football club. However, on the evidence I've seen, I don't believe on normal basis of deciding on guilt or innocence, that balance of probability is correct in this case.
Peter, finally, as I said in the introduction, Osmajić was banned for 8 matches and fined 15 grand for biting a Blackburn defender, biting him on the back. And you said earlier on he admitted that. Right, fair enough.
And Jim, he was doing it in a misguided attempt to actually protect one of his colleagues in a game where the opposing player was then sent off and got a red card.
Oh, he was protecting a colleague, so I bit the guy. Hang on, Peter.
No. Actually, there was a melee at the time, and this guy was actually attacking our player. And the player that actually was, I've got to be careful here how I use the word, I think if I'm allowed to say mixed heritage, the player that was being attacked, our player was a mixed heritage, and Militant was protecting him.
Okay. But he accepted that at the time. Now, a 9-match ban for racially abusing Burnley's Hannibal Mejbri. as I say, and as you say, he denies it, and you side with him. Does it not come to a stage, Peter, with all due respect, you look at the player and you think, is this worth all the hassle?
Look, I think every individual, whoever they are, deserves to be treated fairly and properly. Hannibal, in this case with Hannibal, Militan's saying he didn't say the word he's been accused of saying. In the previous case, he admitted doing it. And the 9 matches were because they took into account his previous disciplinary record of 8 matches. That's why he got 9 on this occasion.
If he didn't say this, Jim, if I were a player, I would be suing the authorities for defamation. If this sort of governance seeps into our society, the challenges that we will have in life will be absolutely unbelievable. And why shouldn't he be expecting the same level of governance and opportunity to be able to prove himself innocent or guilty of a very serious charge? It's one of the most significant things in our society now about culture wars and the battle of ethnicities and racism and all that goes with it. And so with that in mind, if you're now called a racist and you're on a badge with that and you've got to live with that, whether you did it or didn't do it, if you, in this instance, didn't do it, what are you supposed to do about it? Just get on with it on a balance of probabilities.
But if he did do it, you want that individual to be held to account.
Surely you've got to prove it beyond all reasonable doubt, not because someone thinks they heard something and it might have been misinterpreted.
Okay, Peter Ridsdale, I want to thank you, Peter, for joining us this morning. Osmajić strongly denied the charge and, of course, continues to deny this charge. The FA says the Regulatory Commission's written reasons will be published in due course. We'll revisit that when that happens. Just gone 10:30.
Premier League's profit and sustainability rules are sold to us as financial fair play, a way to keep clubs from going bust. But there are those who feel it's starting to look a lot like a system that protects the big boys and keeps the rest in their lane. Here's how it works and why people feel that way. So clubs can only lose £105 million over 3 years, which sounds fair, but here's the kicker. Your limit includes how much you earn. So if you're one of the traditional top 6, you've got massive global revenue streams and you can spend way more while still technically following the rules. Meanwhile, ambitious clubs like Newcastle, Villa or Forest, well, they're bringing a knife to a gunfight. Newcastle might be backed by Saudi billions, but they just can't splurge the cash. Their commercial income isn't there yet. Last season, they won their first domestic trophy since 1955 and qualified for the Champions League, which you'd think would be a great springboard for them to go on and start building a team to challenge at the very top. But because of PSR restraints, they couldn't break their wage structure for a new Alexander Isak contract, and look what happened there. So what's the solution? Well, either loosen the reins so ambitious clubs can spend within their means, or cap spending based on something other than revenue. Otherwise, we're just watching the same 6 teams swapping silverware most seasons, and that, folks, ain't what the Premier League was built on.
International week, but so much going on, and here at talkSPORT we're right across the lot. Another occasion for your boxing calendar this Saturday night, and another super one at that, because Eubank Junior Ben go head to head for a second time, and the dads who did just that all these years ago, Nigel Ben and Chris Eubank Senior, both will be in this studio at different times. At 11 o'clock, Nigel Ben is live with Simon and myself, and then later on, 12:30 onwards, Chris Eubank Senior will be live in here. Expect fireworks, I can assure you of that. All that, of course, and the World Cup in the US of A is fast approaching. The draw early next month. England already in the hat. Scotland trying to get there, but they will, Simon. Of that there is no doubt. I'm
Fantastic.
a proud Scot. And of course, with 212 days to the World Cup, it's going to be in the conversation more and more and more. I am delighted to say that Julie Duffy, who is a FIFA World Cup 2026 Boston host committee member, joins us live in the studio. Julie, good morning.
Good morning. Nice to be here.
Great to have you on board, and thanks for being here. As I say, it's amazing. 200 plus days to the World Cup and counting. But it will be on us before we know it. And my God, I'm telling you that, Julie. Of course you know that. How prepared, how ready is the US of A for the hosting of this great tournament?
We've been preparing for years. So I do feel that we are getting close to getting ready. I mean, the fact that the draw is happening in less than a month's time is very exciting. We'll start to know what teams are going to be playing. We have 7 matches in Boston. So 5 group stage, a round of 32 and a quarterfinal. So we're really excited to continue the preparations and get ready to welcome the world.
I've been to Boston. You have, obviously, Simon. Yeah. You know Boston well. It's a great city. We'll get to that. You're obviously very proud of the city. What can people, Julie, expect, travelling people who head out there for the World Cup? What can we expect from your country, the US, as hosts? What are you going to be like as hosts?
Yeah, I would say there's going to be celebrations across the country. The host cities in particular, but we know of a lot of other states and cities. We were just talking about Rhode Island. Yep. They definitely want to make sure that they're celebrating with fans just on the other side of Massachusetts. Between the matches, if you don't have a ticket to the match, you can still go to viewing parties and celebrations and parties, and we're ready to host it all.
Despite some of the narratives, though, coming out, Julian, you know where I'm going with this. Mm-hmm. Is it a welcome and a warm welcome for everybody who attends the USA?
So that is absolutely our plan in Boston. No questions asked. We are ready to welcome the world, and we're excited to have all of these different fan bases join us in Boston, in the region. You know, we're very close to both New York City and Philadelphia. So I think about 20% of the matches will be in that northern corridor of Massachusetts and, up to Pennsylvania and New York. So we're really excited to partner with our other regions and welcome the world, for sure.
Julie, this by no means are we ambushing you with this, but just a reminder, Boston, great city, but is it going to stay as a World Cup host city? Donald Trump last month, this was him when he was asked about Boston Mayor Michelle Wu and their suitability as World Cup hosts.
I love the people of Boston. I know the games are sold out, but your mayor is not good. They're worse than her. At least she's intelligent. You know, some are extremely low IQ. Those bother me more. She's intelligent, but she's radical left. And they're taking over parts of Boston. That's a pretty big statement, right? We could get them back in about 2 seconds. All she has to do is call us. We'll go in and take them back. If somebody is doing a bad job, and if I feel there's unsafe conditions, I would call Johnny, the head of FIFA, who's phenomenal, and I would say, let's move it to another location. And he would do that. He wouldn't love to do it, but he'd do it. Very easily he'd do it.
What did you think, Julie, when you heard that?
It hasn't stopped our preparations in any way, shape, or form. We're continuing to be excited and preparing for the world to come. He called our mayor intelligent. That was nice. I'm glad there was a positive compliment in there. But otherwise, we're moving forward as planned.
Is it an empty threat then?
It could be. That for right now, we are fully planning on being a World Cup host city. Nobody has, blinked an eye at changing our plans or slowing things down. We're not particularly worried about it in any way, shape, or form. We haven't heard anything from FIFA that anything's changing. So we're proceeding as planned.
So you're not living on your nerves to any great degree, because Trump is nothing if not, he shoots from the hip. You know, at any time the situation can change. You're not in any way worried going forward that something might affect your suitability as a host city.
I mean, I think, anything can happen anywhere in any host city or, at any time around the world. We are completely planning for, all the best of the World Cup to come to Boston. We have our security funding federally. We're working with the state and the city to make sure that we're welcoming the world to Boston. And right now, we're really not worried about it. I
don't see any other way for Julie to approach it, Simon, as she's just
Of course not.
articulated.
Of course not. I mean, Boston is a wonderful city. It's a city steeped in sporting, historic sporting events with historic sporting teams.
Yeah.
You've got in the football world, you've got the New England Revolution that Bob Kraft owns. I think still owns that, doesn't he?
Yes.
And you've obviously got Fenway involved in British sports that own the Boston Red Sox. You've got a great town that's mixed with Italians and Irish and Portuguese. So you've got all these footballing fraternities, and there's little doubt that it will put on a wonderful tournament. Trump's objective and agenda was the policies that are being pushed back in certain democratic states about his policy towards immigration. There's a feeling that possibly there'll be some challenges from people that resist the idea and they feel that the World Cup is a platform for them to be able to utilise. And some would say that same thing about Donald Trump. I happen to think he was elected on a mandate. He's performing that mandate, but that's a different discussion. I'm pretty sure that this town will operate at a very high level and we'll see some great football matches in a great town.
Well, Julie, I mean, FIFA responded by saying safety and security are of the utmost importance at all FIFA events worldwide, and it's ultimately the government's responsibility to decide what's in the best interest of public safety. Off the back of that, can you reassure us all, and I think I know the answer to this, that Boston is indeed a safe city?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, we have federal funding to cover security around the World Cup in general. Having said that, all of the Boston organizations have been coming together for over 2 years now to plan for this event, making sure that, between the state police and the federal government, that we are preparing for all scenarios. I mean, we host the Boston Marathon and what happened, in 2013 with the Boston Marathon, and we're a resilient city and we are very well prepared for this and excited.
What's the population swell likely to be as a result of these games and these teams coming into, and this tournament coming into this part of the world?
So we're expecting about 2 million visitors to come through Boston and the region over the course of that 39-day period, which is very exciting. And it's a huge, obviously, economic benefit as well. And so, we're excited. I'm, here with other partners from Boston, from different restaurants and different tourist attractions, and we want to make sure that the world knows that Boston is a great place to come. And
it was many years ago when I was there. How easy is it to get around the city?
it's pretty easy. It's a great walking city. We have a great commuter rail system. Clearly Ubers and cabs and whatnot. And in the summertime, I think, walking is the best way. So
yeah. One for you before you leave us, Julie. Infantino is cozying up to Trump at every opportunity that he gets. And now we hear that there could well be an inaugural FIFA Peace Prize award before the tournament and that Trump would be the recipient of it. Would he be a worthy recipient of it, in your view?
I've watched the news around that. I don't know exactly where it's going. I could imagine it might be going in that direction. I don't really know what it has to do with the World Cup, but I guess we'll all find out on December 5th.
Yeah.
I'll be in DC for the draw, so I'll be there live and in person to see how it goes down.
Let's finish on a positive note. Anybody listening this morning, and we're proud of the audience we have in this show, Julie. You're speaking to many, many people this morning. You're also being watched on TV. Anyone planning to go to Boston next summer for the World Cup? What can you promise them? What can you tell them?
It's going to be a great time. We're going to have celebrations all across the city in a lot of different neighborhoods. You mentioned a lot of the fan bases that we have. We have the second largest Brazilian population in Massachusetts. Of course, Irish, Italian, Portuguese. And we are very excited to bring the best of Boston forward for all of our visitors. And, come stay for longer than a match or two. If you don't have tickets, come for a week and we'll show you a good time. Quincy Market, Faneuil Hall, the Duck Boat Tours.
Brilliant.
Yes.
Yeah, and loads of Scots out there.
Yeah.
So who's to say Scotland, if they qualify, don't end up there as well?
Exactly.
Julie, terrific. We wish you well with it. Julie Duffy is FIFA World Cup 2026 Boston host committee member, and we eagerly look forward to it. Julie, thank you. You never know. If we're all out there, we'll maybe meet up with you.
Please come visit. We'd love to have you.
That would be fabulous. Thank you so much. It's Jim White and Simon Jordan live in talkSPORT with Selco, where the trade goes. Welcome along, everybody. It's Tuesday morning. It's Jim White and Simon Jordan live in talkSPORT. This is Tuesday, November the 11th. It's Remembrance Day, of course, and we'll be marking that very shortly. In the meantime, before Nigel Ben joins us at the top of the hour, and then Chris Eubank Senior joins us at 12:30, I want to home in on this. FIFA, Simon, are looking at proposing a mandatory 72-hour break between matches amidst concern, yeah, you guessed it, over player workloads in a season. This is a debate that quite simply never really goes away. Just last week, Arsenal and Crystal Palace, the Carabao Cup quarter-final tie, was moved to a week later than the rest of the draw. It was moved actually to December the 23rd in a bid to avoid Palace having to play 3 matches in 6 days. And that was something that Palace boss Oliver Glasner just could not fathom that was even on the cards.
Honestly, I can't believe that this will be fixed in that way. So, because I think this would be irresponsible for the players. And everybody, and we have responsibility for the players, and we have to look after their welfare. And that's our main responsibility, and not just ours here at the club. I'm really upset when I heard it the first time yesterday. I couldn't even believe it, that they are considering this. But I'm really upset because I spoke about this issue 3 months ago when I looked at the schedule. So then in the summer, in the off-season, there are people who have to work on the schedule, and I would really prefer if they talk together, yeah. And because you have international games, you have the 2 cup competitions, and you have the Premier League games. So it would be nice if UEFA, Premier League, FA, and EFL talk together, because it's not so surprising, yeah, that this can happen.
Funnily enough, though, Simon, since the quarter-final was moved, it sparked complaints from Arsenal, who, along with Palace, are now seeking to move a Premier League game before the Carabao Cup match on Sunday the 21st of December.
There's nothing wrong with introducing thought processes that suggest that disciplines that say that players can't play within 72 hours, if we're in that territory. It's about how you implement it into a schedule that's flexing and fluid and has many moving parts. It has competitions in Europe for the elite clubs. It has competitions domestically for everybody. It has cup competitions. It has international functions to be fulfilled. So it's very easy to tell you what you don't want. It's much more difficult to tell you how you're going to facilitate this. Whether you allow bigger squads, whether you accept on broadcast as a part of this conversation as well that certain broadcast games are going to have to be compromised by schedules being changed, because that's in part, the paymasters expect to have their fare, their fodder, because they pay for it. So it's very easy to say these things. Nobody in their right mind, not even me and my most intransigent when Martin Keown was at his most deluded, would suggest that we don't find a solution to the talent being available to perform at the highest level, because it diminishes the product. Yeah, it's about how you do that. And I'm assuming that AI can form part of these conversations. I'm assuming that planned models can be brought into play to look at these things, to find the solution. There will always be these arguments about pre-season tours. There will always be these arguments about travelling abroad for a post-season tour and things of that nature, and World Club championships. Yeah. But this is not unovercomable. It might mean, God forbid, that players can't have 6 or 7 weeks off during the summer. I agree, but overall, though, on the face of it, if this is the mandatory 72-hour break between matches. It's a good thing. It's a win for player welfare. It's a win for sensible thinking about maintaining the players at their highest level, which is in part of the game. Now, it's a sensible thing. It's one thing introducing a policy. It's another thing being able to implement it in the real world. Yeah. Nigel Ben is on the way at the top of the hour. He will be joining us live in studio, 12:30 live in studio. Chris Eubank Jr. We look ahead to the big fight on Saturday night. It's Jim White and it's Simon Jordan, and we are live in talkSPORT.
We're approaching the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. People across the UK will commemorate the end of the First World War. There will now be a 2-minute silence. That was a silence to commemorate the end of the First World War. It's 2 minutes past 11. Your headlines here on talkSPORT. Wales captain Ben Davies will miss the upcoming World Qualifiers with a hamstring injury. Kiefer Moore and Ben Cabango are also out for the games with Liechtenstein and North Macedonia. Isaac Davis and Rhys Norrington Davies have been called up. In the England camp, Trevor Chalobah's replaced the injured Mark Gay ahead of the Serbia game. Now we understand Fulham are weighing up the future of manager Marco Silva. That's after his reluctance to sign a new deal. And Wales Rugby Union captain Jack Morgan will miss the rest of the autumn internationals. He's got a dislocated shoulder. There's more on all the latest at talksport.com.
Good morning, everybody. It has just gone 3 minutes past 11 o'clock this Tuesday morning, Tuesday, November the 11th. It is Jim White and Simon Jordan, and we are live on talkSPORT. Of course, International Week, various games shaping up as to who's going to get to the World Cup finals next summer. And of course, we're right across the lot here on talkSPORT. Later on this morning, of course, a bunch of movement managerially and player-wise. Alex Crook will be joining us later on this morning to tell us who is going where in the world of football. But apart from all that, it's fight week as Chris Eubank Jr. takes on Conor Ben in the rematch this Saturday night, and you can hear it live on talkSPORT. You can watch it only on DAZN.
Big Fight Preview, Eubank Junior versus Ben 2 on talkSPORT with DAZN. Watch the unmissable rematch live this Saturday, only on DAZN.
He's all hype. I can't wait to give him a good hiding.
On that particular night in question, I will show that I have what it takes.
A middleweight contest for the WBO Middleweight Championship of the World. It's all over in the ninth round.
I come up the hard way. I didn't have
prove myself, boy.
You had your time. Let's have some parliamentary procedure here, all right?
If I'm going to go for anything, I'm going to go for the draw.
Right, fans, here we go with the main event of the evening, the rematch you've all been waiting for.
These scumbags blocked that ambulance.
And Eubank's now is starting to feel it. Oh, big right hand from Eubank. This is insane.
I ain't going to go in there and try and render him unconscious as much as I'd love to. Going to be disciplined in there.
Both guys here going for it. So, big left.
The final scene absolutely delivered. We'll catch you next time.
Wow. And if our hearts can stand it, they do it all again this Saturday night. Same venue, the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and we'll see who comes out on top. This time, will it be Chris Eubank Jr. again, or will it be Conor Ben? Joining us this morning, and Simon, I know you're made up with this, so am I, one of the greats of British boxing, a former two-weight world champion and father of Conor Ben, Nigel Ben, joins us live in studio. Nigel, good morning.
How are you?
Great. I love the way you just bounced into the studio here. Good morning, everybody. You were I hear out there you were shaking everybody by the hand.
No problem.
You're saying hello. Life is good.
Life is good. Life is blessed living in Australia, so I can't complain.
Of course, yeah. Of course you are. It's changed surroundings for you. And you know this fellow well. You've interviewed Nigel in the past, but you've followed his career.
Well, I know him, yeah. And for me, as a boxing fan, he was a hero of mine. I went to the fight he fought with Gerald McLennan. I told him this last time I saw him. I felt, without being condescending, I felt an enormous sense of pride in his performance without even knowing him at the time, because I thought it was a remarkable achievement. Funnily enough, I was watching him the other day, watching some fights. I was watching his fight against Iran Barkley. When he went over to the States and regained his poise after losing to Eubank in the first fight. I just think when you went to watch a Nigel Ben fight, you got what you paid for. Yeah, all day, every day.
You were explosive, Nigel, weren't you? You never let people down.
No, I think, you know, it's, I think, when you got the British public behind you, you just want to give 100%. All my fights, every fight I've been, I always had the British public behind me, and you can't go wrong.
So tell me this, fight week as a father compared to fight week as the fighter, how do those two scenarios compare?
I'm much more calm and relaxed this fight. But as a fighter, I always had that, for a fighter, that nervous energy building up. Like when I fought Chris Eubank the first time, that energy that was wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
It was wrong. Because all I wanted to do was rip his head off. And what did my son want to do? Rip his head off. So we went in there with a different outlook on the first fight. Both of us, we both went in there just throwing punches from South Africa, Germany, all over the place. No control.
Was hatred too strong? Yeah, I mean, you hated the man, didn't you?
Yeah, because that was through my stupidity. I did not like the man. I saw this black guy, I mean, who was choppers, monocles, cane. He's a sharp dresser.
You thought he was condescending as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I thought the way that he just looked down at his nose at us, and that was it. He just turned his back on me, and that was it. I just wanted to jump on him.
Do you still dislike him?
No, how can I say? I thank Chris, mate. I thank God for putting him in my life. Without Chris, mate, this would not be happening. These would not be multi-millionaires if it wasn't for me and Chris. I mean, so we are blessed for our kids to have this lifestyle now.
He's coming in here later this morning.
Yeah.
If your paths cross, are you fine with that?
Of course. But the difference is I don't know how he's going to be. I'll go and shake his hand and cuddle him. I don't have a problem. We had a blessed career. So how can I not, love the guy? No, that all stops. That stops for the day we hang up our gloves.
How is Conor and how has his camp been, Nigel, for this one?
Oh my gosh, I think you know what it is. After we all know what he went through, and the depression, the nervous breakdown, the thing that he was actually going through. To watch him now, in this, it's so funny that him losing that fight, I think it was a blessing, the first fight, because I think he would have gone and blown literally everything, that he's earned, all the millions, just would have just gone. He's had time to sit back, look at his life, think about what happened, and now he's just he's at another level. The training has gone so well. I won't say well, it's gone great. He's actually just at peace in himself, in loving. Even like yesterday when they had a face-off, he was just so relaxed with Chris Jr. No problem at all.
So in that first fight, from your point of view, what went wrong for Conor?
The first fight, you got to understand what he went through that led up to all of this. You know, being called a drug cheat, being called this, being called that, and then suffering with depression and everything. So he's not in the right frame of mind. Been out of the ring for 14, 15 months, never made no money. So he had so much pressure on him. And now he's a completely different man. And now he can go and look back, watch the fight, where he went wrong. But most importantly, what I love about him, he's just relaxed in himself and in that the love that he's actually showing Chris, even though with the smash his face in, it's just like he's completely different. And I love the position that he's in, watching him train, watching him spar.
And of course, they do it all again. They're doing it all again on Saturday night. But Simon, as you probably know, Nigel, didn't have the fight first time around. You're not having it, and I'm not dropping you in it right here as you sit shoulder to shoulder with Nigel Ben. And you're not having it second time around. Here's a clip, Nigel, of what Simon thinks about your son and Eubank Jr. doing it again.
Okay.
I think there are more meaningful fights that both of them could have had with more substance. I don't begrudge them earning money. If people are foolish enough to want to put this kind of money in these two fighters' hands, I know they turn around and say, oh, it was a wonderful fight. It was a wonderful fight. They left everything in the ring. So they should. They've had their payday. The level of remuneration for this fight was absurdly big for the level of fight that we're talking about. And marketing, promotion, outstanding. Everyone's made their money. I don't like it. Fair play to the boys. We reward mediocrity. People get paid for mediocrity. Here's a big bag of money for mediocrity. And I maintain that view. And people
the thing was, it was anything but mediocre. But you weren't to know that before it.
Well, it wasn't, from a boxing point of view, what it was a bar fight. And if you like bar fights, that's fantastic. What it was theatre. This is a narrative that's being peddled out around this fight because the only narrative they've got left is unfinished business. And the only unfinished business they've got left is the fact they want to rinse some more money out of everyone's pocket that wants to watch the same thing again.
I watched you there, Nigel. You did not take your eyes off that screen, watching and listening to Simon and what Simon said. You stand. This is a silly question. You stand by every word you've said there, Simon.
Yeah, and I stand by it. And I said it to him previously about what I thought Conor should do post certain circumstances, which we know, which we're talking about, which is the failed drugs test, and what I felt he should do to redeem himself and to build on his career and win a world title, because I thought he could win a world title at 147. I look at him, his father, and I look at Chris Eubank Senior, who's a pest and drives me insane and will drive me insane for an hour and a half when we do this show later on. And I look at their performances and look at their careers, and I think that the two boys are trading off their names. And if that's what we want in society, then fantastic. But I also hear his argument, which is that their careers have blessed their sons. So I hear both sides of it. I'm allowed not to be involved in this.
Of course you are. We heard Simon there say, we reward mediocrity.
Yeah. I disagree.
Is this another mediocre fight?
It's not a mediocre fight. With the first fight, if you watch Conor and Chris threw more punches than Canelo and the other guy, all in 3 fights.
Crawford.
Not Crawford. The other
fight. William Skull.
Yeah, that William Skull and all the guys that all of them, Haney, all of them. Chris and Conor threw more punches than in 3 fights. So. And everyone, you know what it was, regardless of what me and Simon say, people came out to see, and you know what, they were saying that was the best fight, regardless if he called it mediocre. That's his opinion. I'm not gonna you know, I have my belief that Conor fought the wrong fight, and it was like a bar fight with no boxing skill. But I know for a fact this fight you're gonna see the best Conor. I know you want me to start. I'm like, we were having
No.
Nigel,
Not going
to happen.
I was, and I've said to Simon, I found it absolutely edge of seat stuff.
100%,
It was
100%.
incredible.
Yeah.
Do you think critics of it, like observers like Simon, he hasn't been one round?
Yeah.
Typical him. He won't be one round.
He can go one round with me any day he wants.
Oh, one round.
I would love that. He can go one round. Or not even one round, 30 seconds if he wants.
But being one round, I mean, coming round to the fact, many critics have come round to the fact, no, I was wrong. That was a phenomenal fight. Do you think more and more people got it wrong?
Yes.
And accept that it was a bar brawl in the first, and it was magnificent, and are banging into the next one on Saturday night.
Do you know what? I think that the second fight will be better than the first. I'm telling you, will be better than the first, and I honestly believe it won't go the distance.
If Conor got it wrong in the first fight, how does he get it right in this one?
By doing what we practice. But you got to understand what he went through. He's taken that all in a ring. So he's not even thinking about boxing. What come out of his mouth, I want to go and take his head off. And all he was doing, like you're saying, he was throwing big punches all over the place, not thinking, taking his time, bobbing and weaving, hands up, taking a lot of shots. But this time I could see, I know my son. I really know my son. He's so blessed. The training camp has been the best ever. If he sticks to his game plan, it won't go the distance.
So, Nigel, we're about to go into a break. Before we do, 1-0 up, Eubank Junior. He's 1 up. Is there still more pressure on Eubank Junior going into this fight than there is on your boy?
I think, you know what, after the fight, when we both ended up in hospital, he was out for 2-3 days, Eubank. Conor, me and him, after the fight, we went down to the cafe and had a coffee. So he was right his rein. He was a bit bruised, but he was ready to rock and roll and to get back in the gym on a Monday. That was Conor.
Loving this with you, Nigel, honestly. And that's just the first part, folks. Remember, we're looking ahead to Eubank Junior versus Ben. It's the second fight, of course, and we're doing it with DAZN. Watch the unmissable rematch live from the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium this Saturday, live only on DAZN.
Big fight preview, Eubank Junior versus Ben 2 on talkSPORT with DAZN. Watch the unmissable rematch live this Saturday, only on DAZN. fight preview. Eubank Junior versus Ben 2 on talkSPORT with DAZN. Watch the unmissable rematch live this Saturday, only on DAZN.
Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Ben is live this Saturday on talkSPORT and live on DAZN. I'm delighted to say that joining us for this hour is Conor's dad, Nigel Ben, the one and only Nigel Ben.
Thank you.
Fabulous having you in studio.
Thank you very much, sir.
I've got to say, I'm in the privileged position of listening to these two during commercial breaks, and I almost witnessed something very special in that last commercial break. I wish you'd gone through with it, Nigel. No, I don't. Chris Eubank Senior is set to join us later on in the show. Nigel, you'll have gone by then. But he's been reflecting on the first fight, Nigel, and the conditions around it. I want you to react to what he said, and I want you to react to his observations. And we'll get more on this from Eubank Senior when he joins us. But after boiling down to £160 and accepting a rehydration clause, Eubank Jr. was taken to hospital after the first fight and kept under observation for nearly 48 hours. The terms for the rematch remain unchanged. Chris Eubank Senior, Nigel, has said this: I saw a person who is my son between life and death in the back of the ambulance. When he got to the hospital, they were able to give him morphine and stabilise him. But Junior was touch and go because of rehydration. The promoter, Eddie Hearn, is openly trying to damage my son. And the public watch this, and still no one says anything. They're silent. It's sad that people are blind to it. And now my son is in the same position again. He's walking into a trap, and there is nothing I can do to stop him.
Oh, God. Listen, me and Simon have been talking about it. Chris Eubank Jr. has been fighting at middleweight for the last 5-6 fights. No one says anything. But all of a sudden, he fights Conor Ben, and now, he's the hydration clause. Look at he's always fought at middleweight. He's even, I think, IBO middleweight champion of the world. So why is it all the big complaints about?
Do you know where it comes from, Nigel?
Yeah, go on.
Boiling down to 157. That's where it comes from. It comes from that argument. And it's been seeded in that thinking, not the 160. It's been seeded in the 157 weight.
Yeah, but the difference is it just keeps going on. And you know what it is? It's just so much negativity. And the funny thing about it is having a proper nutrition, proper strength and conditioning coach. This will all happen. Has he got?
Bomac has said.
Has he got the right team around?
Bomac has said this now. He said there's no possibility there's any concerns that Chris Eubank won't make the weight and make it comfortably.
Well, I saw him at the weigh-in. The photo shoot. To me, I think he just looks strained, because sometimes it's like.
When was this?
Yesterday.
You think he looks strange?
Yesterday when they both had a face-off. When they both had, but the difference is that's not down to us.
No.
As long as we look and say, you know what?
Yeah, but Nigel, if the shoe was on the other foot and it was your son having to boil down in weight, would you have similar concern?
But the difference is, I would make sure that he had the professional team around him. You got to remember the first fight. What was he doing? Eating KFC, doing and all things like that, taking them in stuffing himself. That's down to him. That's not professional. But it's just showing him that and not only that, I'm only going to change 40%, I think, for Conor Ben.
Would you allow Conor, if he was in a similar position, to boil down in weight?
But the difference is, if he's got his right team around him, that's it. That's not I'm not going to get in with a nutritionist and try and tell him what Conor's got a nutritionist, because not only that, when Conor gets back down to 147, he's going to need a nutritionist that's going to guide him for the next 3 months.
What about the rehydration clause, Nigel? There's a lot of argument is made. I mean, I understand the rehydration clause for Chris is that if he goes above £10 rehydration, he gets £1 million bonus lost, which is in part is his own choice. He can either give up his health or his wealth, right? One of the two.
But that was his choice.
I agree with you.
I can't.
Would you accept that? If you were part of the management team that was discussing Conor's position and the same thing was put to Conor, knowing that health and knowing that challenges, you've been in with Gerald McLennan, you know the ramifications of challenges that come as a result of it. Would you be saying to Conor, well, we can't have that. Put £1 million, you're making plenty of money out of this fight, put £1 million to one side, get rid of the rehydration nonsense. You've got to rehydrate back for the fight after the weigh-in.
I think you've got to understand, putting on £10 for a fight, that's a lot. Yeah. Because otherwise, besides putting on that £10, the rest of it's just going to be like.
That's not the question, mate. The question is that Chris is not allowed to rehydrate back to a certain level. Right, there's a rehydration clause which says once he's weighed in at 160 or whatever he weighs in, right, he can't go above 10 pounds. He can't go above 170.
I agree.
And he's a £1 million bonus.
I would agree with that, because we're not going to try and flip it on Connor. I would agree with that, because I think at the end of the day, Connor's moved up, so that means that he's gone much more heavier than Connor.
Yeah.
So then I would say, well, no, that's right, because I still got to protect my son.
But that's at the centre of Chris Eubank Senior's
argument. Well, that's what Chris is saying. Well, I think at the end of the day, his son, first of all, his son's over 21. He's a big man. He don't need his dad.
Yeah.
He can decide for himself.
I agree.
And he's chose to do that. So everything falls at his door.
Yeah.
Don't fall at anybody else's door. He has the opportunity to say, you know what, I don't want this fight unless we change it. But no, he stood by that and said, like, you know what, I'm happy. That was him.
No, I'm with him, mate.
So I can't say, well, it's all down to Chris Jr. Not his dad, because the dad always, like, saying everyone wants to hurt his son. No, speak with your son, because everything about them too, I'm sorry, it's just full of negativity. You had the opportunity to choose it from the beginning.
Fair enough, Nigel. You put that one to bed. We have, of course, still to discuss Ambulance Gate, because Eubank Junior shared footage of his ambulance allegedly being blocked post-fight. I was there in the bowels of the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and I could see it all. We'll get into that next. Nigel Ben is live on talkSPORT this morning as we build up to Eubank Junior Ben this Saturday night, live in the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, live on talkSPORT, and of course on DAZN.
Chris Eubank Senior is worried about possible long-term damage his son could suffer from his first fight against Conor Ben. Eubank Jr. is again coming down to 11 stone 6 pounds for this weekend's rematch. Eubank Senior calls it madness and says dehydration is dangerous. Both fighters went to hospital as a precaution after the first bout. Conor Ben told talkSPORT Eubank Jr. only posted about it to get sympathy.
He's made this 160 weight his pretty near enough his whole career, but he chose to miss it. Well, he didn't choose to. He was cutting it fine for sympathy vote, costing 500 grand. Then he was £3 under the rehydration limit.
Ben v Eubank Jr. is live on talkSPORT this Saturday night. Get all the build-up on the talkSPORT Boxing YouTube channel. Now, we understand that Columbus crew boss Wilfred Nancy is leading contender to become the new Celtic manager. Celtic are also looking at Bodo Glimt's Kjetil Knutsen, but Nancy is seen as more attainable at this stage. And Srian Botham's questioned the quality of England's Ashes preparation. Instead of playing warm-up games against state sides, Ben Stokes' team will play a game against the England B team ahead of the first test in Perth. England coach Marcus Trescothick says they're doing what they can.
With the volume of cricket that's played, you don't have the time for preparations like potentially of playing 2 or 3 first-class games, which has happened in the class. I think you generally roll with a prep game.
Big Fight Preview, Eubank Jr. versus Ben 2 on talkSPORT with DAZN. Watch the unmissable rematch live this Saturday, only on DAZN.
Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Ben live this Saturday, as you heard. Live on talkSPORT, live on DAZN. We eagerly await it. Chris Eubank Senior will join us here live in the studio in about an hour from now. Simon alongside me here, and alongside Simon is the one and only Nigel Ben, father of Conor, of course. And we're halfway through the hour, and we already have so many messages coming in, Nigel, praising you for the way you're speaking, the way you're so open and honest about all your views. I'm going to get to some more of those moments in your life towards the end of this half hour. Of that, there is no doubt. At the end of the last fight, a lot was made of this. Chris Eubank Jr. shared footage of his ambulance, having won the fight at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Chris Eubank Jr. shared footage of his ambulance allegedly being blocked after the fight. Something he originally alleged in last month's launch presser. And that was a press conference that, Nigel, you attended, where the blame was being laid at the door of Eddie Hearn very firmly by Eubank Jr.
After the fight, due to severe dehydration, I'm put in an ambulance and I have to go to hospital. I was actually so dehydrated that one of the toenails on my big toe fell off. These scumbags blocked that ambulance from leaving the stadium for 20 minutes.
By the way, this is an intrigue. I'll keep going because this is all being noted because it's absolute waffle.
20 minutes.
Waffle.
Waffle. I'm laying there in a gurney, oxygen mask on, and the car cannot move. They will not open the gates to let us leave.
Sorry, who won't open the gates?
Now, if this was a serious injury that I had sustained, that 20 minutes...
Chris, I want to know who wouldn't open the gates. It's important.
That 20 minutes...
You can't answer that, can you?
...could have been the difference between life and death.
Can you just confirm that you are accusing
us... I am
Matchroom?
Yes.
Okay, say it.
You guys
say it.
Me from
say it.
Out.
Say it.
Nigel, you were there. When you heard that, what did you think?
I think it's a load of BS because Eubank was about 50 yards lying on the bed, covered up, and me and Chris Senior come over, we was talking to Conor.
Where?
in the hospital.
Right, but before the hospital, is there anything in what Eubank Junior alleged that his ambulance was blocked in its attempt to leave the stadium?
But me and Connor, we got into the ambulance straight away, and we just went.
What, at the same time?
He was already there before us.
Eubank Junior was at the hospital before
us, yes, and with his dad. You asked his dad, and Artie's dad, he came over and was talking to Connor. He was like more interested talking to Connor. So then afterwards, then my wife said, like, go over and see Chris Jr. I thought, I'm not going over and see him, you know. And I went, actually, eventually, you know, she convicted my heart. I went over there. He was there with his girlfriend. I think it was his girlfriend. Then I went over there, touched him, kissed his hand. Because he was covered up.
Kissed his hand?
Yeah, he was covered up.
Covered up in bed in the hospital?
Yeah, like the bed with something over his face. Like, I don't know what it was, like a piece of plastic over his face, but he was out. He was out.
Did he acknowledge you?
No, out. Totally out. Totally out. He was so dehydrated. He was out. And then me and Chris Senior carried on talking. And while he was talking with Connor. So we was there, so I don't know how he can say he was held up. But me and Connor, we just got straight into the ambulance and we went there.
Just to be clear, yes. You and Connor got to the hospital ahead of Eubank Jr.
No, he was already in the bedroom. He was already in the bed. He was already there. You asked his dad, he was already there. He was already there, laid out. He was already there.
I mean, what do you think about the observation he's made that Eddie or people around Eddie have stopped the ambulance? What do you think for that?
I think it's as Eddie said, a load of waffle. I can't believe that because me and Connor, we all just wanted Connor to go and have a check.
Do you think, Nigel, that the structure of way that the sport is set up is providing the prerequisite amount of support for athletes in terms of being able to get out of stadiums? You were involved in a fight with Joe McLennan. You know the consequences of that. Do you think that, irrespective of whether people did or didn't block, and I'm in your camp, I don't believe they did, but are ambulances and things of that nature able to get out of these environments as quick as they should be, given the circumstances of fighters?
I don't believe it was that, because I think at the end of the day, just like with me and Joe McLennan, we both had two ambulances. We both went to the hospital
at the same time.
Just exactly the same. But Chris was already there for when me and Connor come.
Right.
And then me and Chris Eubank Senior, he came over, was singing Connor's praise.
So it's a
you're saying Eubank Jr. was already there.
He was already there. And you know what it is? I think it's a lot of this sympathy vote. I'm sorry to say, it's a sympathy vote.
Do you think it's sympathy vote or just a story that... Because ultimately the first story was, I can slap an egg in Connor's face, I can go against all the promoters and call them scumbags, I can cozy up to Turkey.
You know what?
This is a different narrative now.
It's so funny you saying that, because back in our day, I know it's changed, but we would never, ever talk to a promoter like that.
Yeah.
For lack of respect.
Do you think this is a safety issue being used as a form of promotion for the fight?
Well, I don't know if it's a promotion for the fight. I just think that, you know, he just wants a sympathy vote, because at the end of the day, people, the two ambulances there, I didn't even know there were two ambulances there, but they was already prepared for this. If something serious had happened, he was there, and all I can say, he was in the bed,
right,
50 yards away from where Connor was.
When you arrived?
He was already there, and we were talking to his dad.
So the support structure is fit for purpose. Can I ask you another question?
Yes.
When you were sat in the dressing room with Connor, and the screen flicks to his dad getting out of the car, did it get right on your tits? In terms of him stealing all the attention?
Yeah, but you know...
Nicked it, sucked it out of the room for you lot.
Yeah, $250,000. But anyway, that's another story. But the difference is... But I'm glad that he was there. Oh, my gosh.
You're like, look what he's done. He's taken all the energy.
Look at me. I'm here. Yeah. I've arrived. But but that's Chris.
Did you know he was going to be there?
No, of course not. Of course not. But you knew deep down he's going to be there.
Did you think he'd be there? You had in the back of your mind.
Of course, it's got to be. How can you not be there supporting your son? And the way that he got out, you see, he was more interested. Yeah, stay there, Chris Jr. The cameras are on me.
Did it make for a better event, Nigel?
Yeah, of course it was. The crowd erupted, so I thought, yeah, well done, Chris. Well done.
See, this is what you missed on the night, Mr. Jordan. It was sensational. How are we ever going to get this through to him?
Oh my gosh, give me your hand.
I didn't go. I said I'm consistent. I'm
my gosh.
I'm not like him over there who come in an hour's time flip-flopping around saying I'm not going to go. There's a dangerous fight. I should never be there. Everyone should ban it, and then goes for $250,000, like you say.
Nigel, let me ask you this: going through what you did as a fighter, were you always comfortable with Conor deciding that boxing was a career for him?
Well, I didn't want him to box. I actually didn't want him to box at all, because when he had his first fight in Scotland, he was like Doc Cotton slapping his hand like he was over with a handbag, and I thought, oh no, you're not going nowhere. But then I watched him just elevated. It was it just changed, and I thought he can most likely be British champion or something like that.
And Eubank Senior was the same. He didn't want Junior to go into the ring either.
Yeah, but now that what I've seen, what my son's done, how he's just, to me, in my whole career, I've never seen anybody train like Conor. If I look at me as world champion, at my peak, I'm here. And the way Conor trained, it's another level. What the hell's Twitch fibers and all that? Having strength and conditioning coach, dietitian, nutritional coach, everything. Just another level. Absolutely.
And talking about levels, Simon has called Eubank Junior a charlatan because of the level that he fights at. What is Conor's level? Do you think he has still got to get to another level?
Yeah, of course he has.
World title.
Yeah, world title. Hopefully, God willing, after this fight, everything goes all right. Boil back down to 147, and then he'll kind of progress at that level.
But I mean, if Conor wins on Saturday, you're topping the trilogy, aren't you?
No, he's going back down. That's his goal. That's his goal, to be W.
So there's no trilogy in your eyes?
No.
Absolutely not.
No. I think after this fight there won't be a trilogy anyway. I honestly believe that.
Did you ever doubt that after Conor went through and the 2-year fight to clear his name?
Yeah.
That Conor, once he had rehabilitated himself and his image, he'd be back in the ring again.
Well, I think you know what it was, Jim. I just feel like he just got his head around it. He had a lot of counselling. Had mum, dad praying for him, and his whole mindset just changed over that period of time. And so yeah, now he's a real Conor now. He's back to his normal self. We're happy. We're contented the way that he's progressing in his career and in his family life.
Do you think he's fully rehabilitated and accepted in the eyes of the public?
Well, I think, you're going to win the public over, you're going to win some, and you're going to lose some. But that's just the way it is. But I think at the end of the day, I love my boy. I know my boy. My boy's me. I just know that it's not in his nature, because the way that he trains, he's just so dedicated. It's just like a finely tuned athlete, like what I was, even though I had a lot of recreational stuff in my career. But Conor's not like me.
Do you think Conor has tried too hard to be you?
Nah. I think I look at the way that he trains and all that, mate. I wish I could train like him. And he has a better boxing brain than me. But we didn't see it. We did not see it. You're going to see it now. I watched Conor box. I watched him spar with some good sparring partners. And I thought, mate, you sit with that plan there. This is going to be an easy night for you, because the first fight, even though he done 12 rounds, but it was that crash bang wallop. That was it to me. I thought, mate, you done 12 rounds, and now I know that he can do 12 rounds.
Simon, Nigel was a 2-weight world champion. Do you think Conor can get to that?
No. I think he can win a belt at 147. Mm-hmm. If you look at the 147, I think the fights that are there for him, I think are available for him to do so. I think Lewis Crocker would be a great fight. He's got the IBF.
Yeah.
I think Mario Barris is a fight I think he could win.
That's the one.
Absolutely could win. But do I think he can achieve the heights of his father? Well, this is the challenge of being a son of fathers that are so talented. It's a curse and a blessing in equal measure, because it gives you opportunities in life that others might not get, but it sets you to a standard that's bloody hard. And if he can win a world title in of himself, that's why it's parts of this fight I don't like. It's because these boys, him and Chris Eubank Senior, were elite fighters. And until Chris Eubank Jr., when I called him a charlatan, was in conjunction with him constantly telling us how much money he's got and about his house in Las Vegas whilst ducking every world title fight. And every time he stepped up against George Groves and against Billy Joe Saunders, he lost. That's why I called him a charlatan in the conversation. Not because he's a charlatan full stop, because it takes a lot of balls to get in a boxing ring, balls that I'd never have, right? So I respect it. But to suggest that they can be compared to their fathers, that's my problem. I don't buy nostalgia. I don't buy all that crap of Chris Eubank Senior coming in the ring and the whole atmosphere going, hey! If he got paid to be there, all those people saying, my son, I want to see my son today because he turned up.
Let me ask you this before we hit the break. And I know Nigel's sitting right on your left shoulder. In your eyes, is Conor rehabilitated? In your eyes, following the failed drug test scandal and everything else that went with it?
First of all, who's the arbiter of rehabilitation? Right? Is Canelo Alvarez rehabilitated? Was Tyson Fury rehabilitated? People are accepted. Billy Joe Saunders had a different dynamic on that one. I don't think he's been exonerated, but I've long since he and I have had this disagreement and argument, and he's been strong on his views about it, and I disagree with the principle of it. I would like to see, if Conor is innocent, I'd like to see him start suing people. I'd like to see him start going after compensation and making people accountable if he's entirely innocent, because those are the actions of an innocent man.
100%.
And making people accountable
100%.
for it. If I see that,
I agree with you.
You agree with me?
I agree with you.
Right, we're going to hit a break. A lot more to come. And remember, Chris Eubank Senior going to be in the studio at 12:30. The fight itself, Eubank Jr. versus Nigel Ben, Saturday night from the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, live in talkSPORT and live on DAZN.
Big Fight Preview, Eubank Junior versus Ben 2 on talkSPORT with DAZN. Watch the unmissable rematch live this Saturday, only on DAZN.
Well, that's right. Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Ben. You can watch it only on DAZN live this weekend, Saturday night from the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, live in talkSPORT as well. Nigel Ben, father of Conor, of course, is still in studio with Simon and myself. And Nigel, we cannot have you in here without talking what happened between the two fathers all these years ago. And it is all these years ago. Yeah. The iconic contract signing live on ITV. My God, when we see it, I tell you what, let's see a clip of it and then we'll get Nigel's take on it. Here it is.
I have what it takes. This man is nothing but, he's the real hype. I come up the hard way. I didn't have Frank Warren. Myself, boy. You had your time. Let's have some parliamentary procedure here, all right? Oh, God. I have nothing to say to Nigel. I find the man intolerable in that he's so wild. I have no time for such people. He has no class as far as I see it. About Nigel Ben, I would say this. The man is a powerful puncher, a very powerful puncher. For this, I would like his autograph, because after I've finished with him, he isn't going to be anybody.
I think the public is demanding this. You know, I walk down the street, people say, hey, give this boy a hiding.
Well, let's make sure the fight takes place by signing the contract right now. Christopher? I have to say, there seems an element of genuine hate between these two, Ambrose.
For sure.
I don't hate the man. I just want his WBO title. I pray that I have enough dignity not to hate the man.
All right, gentlemen, you both signed the contract.
I personally do hate him.
How do you feel when you hear that, you look at that?
Well, you know what it is? I look at it, I feel, I hate that man. I just had to get it out. I don't know why, but I really disliked him at that time. I don't hate Chris now. I thank God that he was around. And we needed someone like that to have nearly 47,000 at Old Trafford, over 18.5 million people watching and nearly 500 million around the world. Mwah. Thank you, Chris.
The first fight in 1990 was
actually better than the first.
It was vicious and violent.
Yeah. You know what? I didn't realise, and that's what I'm saying. The same thing what kind of went in there, I went to take his head off. And Chris's head's got a big, thick neck. His head's shaped like a mallet. He was just really, really strong, powerful man. And when he hit me, he hit me a couple of times and my legs just turned into Shaky Stevens. I was just all over the place. But he was very, very powerful. I underestimated him.
And he won the first one.
Yeah.
And you drew the second one.
Yeah.
Does it still nag away at you?
Absolutely not. That
you didn't beat him?
No, I've got that belt around there, so I've got £1 million in the bank, you know what I mean? So it wasn't about, God, I didn't beat him. You know what it is? He was a tough man. The first fight, I actually preferred the first fight in the second, even though I lost. Because I was more, I had to change my style fighting in the second time. But I believe, a lot of people think I won the second fight, but, it's neither here or there. It was a draw.
Do you think that Nigel won the second fight, Simon?
Come on, Simon, come on, back me up, mate. Back me up.
I think it was. I didn't have a problem with a draw. I didn't have a problem with a draw.
We'll cut him off now. Let's just carry on talking.
We just got a few minutes to go, Nigel, and one or two things I've picked up on.
Yeah.
You've said to Simon while you've been in here and during breaks. As you know, today we mark Remembrance Day. The Army and Armed Forces played a big part in your life. I know that. But a little while ago, you said, no, we can talk about this. You've been in dark places in your life. And this Saturday night, you're going to be at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium again, and you're there to fully back and support your son.
Yeah.
But was there a time that maybe Nigel Ben wasn't going to be there?
I think that was back in '98. I think it was my lifestyle. And that's why I really understand. Ricky, sometimes we're in a dark place. And I remember it was in Stretton Common. I had a bottle of sleeping tablets and a bottle of wine with a hose to the car. Just sat in there and I was just crying. And there was all men picking men up. And it's a 2-time world champion crying his eyes out. And I didn't know if Jim, if I really wanted, I just wanted someone to say, you know what? You're going to be all right. You're going to get through this. And that help actually come in the form of Jesus Christ. That we're now, that I thank God for saving me on that day, that special day. And because usually when you leave this world, you think, you know, you want to go to a place where it's going to be peace and quiet. You either go to heaven or hell, one of the two. And I choose to spend the rest of my life here and then end up in heaven. Do you understand? But it was a very dark place I was in for many, many years, struggling with, didn't know I had bipolar and had a lot of negative thought, suicidal thought, depression, all through my career. All through my career. And it actually started at the age of 8 when I lost my brother, got killed by racists. That's where it started for me. And I wanted to talk about it with Mum and Dad, but back in the day, it was like, no, we're not talking about it. So I've got something inside me that's building up. Why is my hero? Because the only way I can describe it is just like when Simba lost Mufasa, he's walking around in the wilderness. That was me from the age of 8. Started smoking at the age of 12, then started smoking weed and all things like that because I was struggling, but in them days, you just had to suck up and try and deal with it. And it's only thank my Heavenly Father now that I'm in a better position now.
Do you think there's enough support, Nigel, for fighters and fighters who retire? And of course, I know we're thinking of Ricky.
Yeah, you know.
I mean, do you think there is enough support today?
No, we don't, because boxers, you know, sometimes think, no, I'm all right, I can deal with this. But a lot of them, they are not just only in the boxing, but a lot of sportsmen that struggle and need that help, and there's help there, but yet sometimes they're just scared to express that they feel weak, they don't feel strong. Me, I express what's in my heart. If I have to cry, I'll cry. I get it off.
Nigel Ben, what can we say other than thank you so much for the last hour? Thank you so much for what you've given us in your career. And we look forward to Saturday.
Yeah.
Before he comes into this very studio, you probably have gone out the front door down the ground floor by then. Do you have a message for Chris Eubank Senior this lunchtime? All these years on, now think about this. All these years on, after what you two shared and what's been said, as you vacate this studio and Eubank Senior is going to come in, what message do you have for Chris Eubank Senior this lunchtime?
Have you got a back door that I can go out?
Go on.
No. Do you know what? Yeah, I thank you, Chris, for giving me a wonderful life. I think without you, mate, look what we've created. Our legacy lives on, and thank you.
And what we're going to see from Conor on Saturday night?
We're going to see the real Conor. 100% we're going to see the real Conor, because like the first fight, even though he done 10 rounds, you know, 12 rounds, that wasn't a real Conor. But I was happy that he done 12 rounds, and I know that he can do it. But this time it will be a completely different Conor, 100%. If he sticks to the game plan, it'd be early doors.
And does that game plan, Nigel, involving your boy stopping Chris Eubank Jr.?
100%. 100%. I would say that.
Nigel Ben, it is live in talkSPORT. It's live in DAZN. I want to thank you so much for being with Simon and myself this morning, this lunchtime. Thanks, Nigel. I'll come your way in the break. Don't worry. Nigel Ben with us live on talkSPORT. It's 12 noon.
to get the job done. Search Nissan Vans or head to your local Nissan Van Centre.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is now 6 minutes past 12 noon. It's Jim White and it's Simon Jordan. We are live on talkSPORT this Tuesday lunchtime, Tuesday, November the 11th, Remembrance Day, of course. And you can also watch the show live. We're live on TV, on Samsung, LG, Fire TV, Apple TV, even Prime Video. Wherever you want to watch us, you can find us there. Nigel Ben has come and gone. Of course, this huge fight on Saturday night. Eubank Junior, Conor Ben go in again. Fight for the second time. It's live in talkSPORT. It's live on the Zone. Nigel Ben has come and gone. Chris Eubank Senior will be in studio with Simon and myself at 1:30. But Simon, I know you're quite close to Nigel. You know him pretty well, and that was evident in some of the chats you were having, not only on air, but during the commercial breaks as well. What's your take on that last hour with Nigel?
Oh, well, I respect and admire Nigel for lots of reasons. I don't agree with some of the things that he says, but that's fine. That's okay. I think you're in the presence of someone that was at the very top of their game, as you will be with Chris Eubank Senior. I mean, Chris Eubank Senior is a different animal. And when he gets into peacock mode, it drives me insane. But there's also the other side of Chris Eubank, where some of the things he says are brilliant, some of it's not so great.
Yeah.
But what you get is two people that are real characters and were really at the high end of their sports. And so you can't help but find yourself going back to your young self. When I went to that London Arena fight to watch him beat Joe McClellan, and the shock and awe of that fight, you know, and Ben getting knocked down in the first 45 seconds of the fight, and then going back and dealing with Joe McClellan, and obviously tragedy that came out of that. And Eubank is such a character, you know, and so when you sit in a room with these guys, I did up front with both of them. And Chris was a bit hard work before the show, and so was Nigel for different reasons.
Yeah.
But when you talk to them, I mean, you do get some hell of an insights into their thinking, and I admire both of them. You know, I have to be honest, I would spend more time with Nigel than I would with Chris.
Right.
And I'm quite happy to say that to Chris, but the fact of the matter is, both of them are box office, and to some extent, there's no doubt about it, their sons they are their father's sons, the two fighters that are fighting on Saturday. Sure. Whether I like the fight or not is irrelevant.
For sure. Chris Eubank Senior on his way in the building and will be making his way up to the 17th floor here and join us in studio at 12:30.
Our toil elegance itself, I suspect.
He will be live with us from 12:30 and we will finish the show, the final half hour today, in the company of Chris Eubank Senior. We're in the company now of talkSPORT's chief football correspondent, Alex Crook, who joins us live on the show. Alex, good afternoon to you. A whole bunch of things to discuss, but let's go first with Marco Silva at Fulham. What's the latest there this lunchtime?
Yeah, good afternoon. There always seems to be a bit of tension in the air when it comes to Marco Silva and Fulham. He's not a manager, is he? He was afraid to voice his opinion. I spoke to him a couple of times over the course of the summer when the transfer window was still open, and he admitted that they'd left it too late, really, to bring in the type of player that he wanted, that they were basically having to make up for lost time. He also said after the window had closed, the club didn't really do enough, and here they are a point above the relegation places, can't win away from home. And I'm told that Fulham are also concerned about his apparent reluctance to commit to a new contract. He's out of contract at the end of this season when he would be a free agent. There was talk of Saudi Arabia 18 months or so ago. There's been talk of clubs in Europe paying close attention to Marco Silva as well. I wonder if this might come to a head sooner rather than later, because I'm told that members of the Fulham hierarchy are not happy with the start they've made to the season. And obviously he's not been happy with the backing he's had of the transfer market. So where does it all end for Marco Silva?
Simon, you've had doubts in the past about Marco Silva.
I don't have them anymore.
You don't have them anymore, but in the past you used to frown on the fact that maybe he said one thing and did another.
Well, no, I questioned his behaviour over leaving Watford and going to Everton in the manner that he did. I felt that was wrong, and I'd stay by that, and I don't think anything's changed my view on that. I think certainly as a manager now, I think the performance he's put in at Fulham has entitled him to ask for more support, and if they didn't give him the support that he requires, then ultimately he'll have a choice at the end of his career, at the end of his contract, whether he renews or not, or maybe they'll take a choice for him. I hope he doesn't go to Saudi, because he's better than that. He's better than that league. He's a fully fledged Premier League manager, and so I think there'll be other candidates for him. But I think he's done a very good job at Fulham. You know, and I'm fortunate enough, my son goes to school with one of the Fulham players' sons and know him quite well, and I know that they speak very highly of him as manager. And I think you've seen the evidence on the field. Predominantly, Fulham have been a very competitive and very difficult side to play against. And this season is a little bit of a surprise to me that they're dwelling at the bottom.
They are struggling this year. 3 wins in 11. So
yeah, it's not.
Something's got to give.
It's not what I thought. But if the manager had wanted certain players, and I'm all for managers getting what they're given and getting on with it. Yeah. But I suspect he has probably earned a little more support than he possibly got.
Okay, Alex, elsewhere, Rob Edwards and Wolves. Is this happening?
Well, originally I think they were hoping to make a formal announcement today. That could still happen. It's only just gone midday. But at the moment, my understanding is they're still in negotiations with Middlesbrough, just finalising the terms of Rob Edwards' exit, and maybe if he wants to take 1 or 2 of his backroom staff with him as well. So nothing to suggest this deal won't happen, but there is a minor hold-up, I guess, because there's an international break. There's no match this weekend in the Premier League, then time is on Wolves' hands. But yes, I do still expect this to happen. I know Simon's had his say in it. I know Middlesbrough fans are deeply unhappy. But I've got to say the reaction from Wolves supporters to one of their own going back to the club has been pretty positive, certainly more positive than when Gary O'Neill was being touted for a return.
You still get a strong view that Rob Edwards should stay put because of the opportunity Simon was given.
I don't need to rehearse it. Absolutely. Was there a significant release clause that Middlesbrough put into their managerial contract with him, Alex? I think there wasn't there?
My understanding was that there is a release clause, but not as big as you think for a club in the Premier League. I think it's going to be in the £3 million region. But to say if he wants to take any staff with him, then obviously that has to be negotiated separately.
What next for Middlesbrough? It begs that question, surely.
It does. There was talk of Gary O'Neill, I've just mentioned earlier this week. Again, he doesn't seem to be a particularly popular figure with the Middlesbrough supporters, so I'm not sure they're going to go down that route. I did see a stat, actually. I don't know if this is 100% accurate, that Steve Gibson, in his tenure at Middlesbrough, has never taken a manager from another club. So that would seem to suggest that out-to-work candidates are maybe in a better position. Carlos Corberán, who is in a job at the moment at Valencia, was mentioned to me at the weekend. I know there's been a bit of talk of Steven Gerrard potentially. I think he does want to get back into management, despite the fact he turned down Rangers. But obviously, Middlesbrough would face the same tax implications that Rangers themselves faced, I think, up until the end of this year. So there's no standout candidate at this stage, as far as I'm told, because Middlesbrough weren't actively planning to lose their manager just 14 games into the season. It'll be interesting to see what role AD Vivash has, because, of course, he was interim manager at the weekend, won his game as well. I'm told he won't follow Rob Edwards to Wolves. So does he stay on in some capacity under a new manager? I think certainly won a lot of plaudits among Middlesbrough fans for the way he conducted himself when it all broke out. It all sort of got a bit chaotic at the end of last week.
Yeah. We know at the weekend Norwich City sacked Liam Manning after 17 games. Where are we at with that, Alex?
Well, what's interesting here is that Norwich fans have been protesting not just against the manager, but against members of the hierarchy as well, and in particular the sporting director, Ben Napper. They're not happy with the appointments that he has made. I was told yesterday that he will be leading the search for Manning's replacement, so there's no suggestion at this stage that he's going to be following the manager out of Carrow Road. Gary O'Neill is someone who they spoke to before appointing Liam Manning, and I know he impressed them. Whether he has the appetite to take on the job now with them struggling at the wrong end of the Championship, having just turned down Wolves, I think is probably open to debate. Russell Martin, former Norwich club captain, is someone else who they are considering. And there's even been talk of a return to the club for David Wagner as well. Whatever happens, the sense I get is that Ben Napper has to get this appointment right. If he doesn't, then that probably will spell the end of his tenure at Carrow Road as well.
And on Celtic, do we have a latest on Celtic this lunchtime? Martin O'Neill still in interim control at the club at the moment. I know he's back down here for the time being. Maybe we'll get some kind of progress on this week, but what's your understanding there?
And he's done a good job, hasn't he? Our colleague, he's cut the gap at the top of the table, picked up some significant victories, not least in that cup semi-final against Rangers. But I think it was always going to be a short-term appointment. I think Martin himself went in on that basis. The name that was given to me yesterday was a bit of a curveball, really. Wilfred Nancy, currently in charge of Columbus Crew over in the MLS. He has done well stateside. He won the MLS Cup. Beat Los Angeles in the final, the first black manager to win the MLS Cup. So clearly has a big reputation there, but not someone that we know a huge amount of. He does play an attractive brand of football, I'm told, so that would probably go down well with Celtic supporters. The other name, and I've mentioned him to you before, Jim, is Knutsen at Bodo Glimt, but that one is complicated because they're in the Champions League. Although his contract expires at the end of December, I get the impression that he wouldn't want to walk out all the time. They've still got a chance of qualifying for the Champions League knockout rounds.
You're not impressed by either of the names thrown in there, are you? Or
well, I don't know enough. I don't know enough about either, but
Yeah.
I've seen the standard of the MLS. I was out there last year watching the top two of the top sides into Miami against St. Louis, and it was poor. It wasn't at a level. Now, I can make arguments and make light of the Scottish League, but Celtic are a giant. And whilst we can talk about Ange Postecoglou coming in there and the backdrop of his career, I don't know. It doesn't fill me with a great deal of inspiration. I don't know what does it fulfill in Sir Rod Stewart CBE. Maybe we can ask him. He can tell us.
Maybe we can ask him. He's going to the fight on Saturday night, he was telling me.
Is it?
Alex Crook, thank you very much indeed. Alex with his live talkSPORT chief football correspondent. Martin O'Neill still in interim charge at the moment. Very briefly, Simon, I know we're running out of time. We'll get to the break. If you're Dermot Desmond, what do? I mean, Martin's won 3 out of 4, in his stint back at the football club. You keep him there? Are you still thinking end of the season, or what you think?
No, I'm thinking that if I've got somebody that can hold the fort and win games for me, I'm thinking that I want to make sure that I really dot the I's, cross the T's, and get under the bonnet of what I'm doing next. I didn't get it wrong with Brendan in bringing him back because he won things for me. But, the fact that he talked out of school and was disrespectful, to me is a disappointment if I'm Dermot Desmond and the other members of the board and shareholders. But I wouldn't be feeling that I'm a race against time. If I'm winning football matches and I'm holding my position, I'm closing the gap to Hearts and things are coming on top for me in terms of opportunities that are beneficial.
Sure.
Why would I feel the need to race? Unless, of course, I've got my candidate, I know who it is, I'm nailed on, he's everything I want, then there's no time to waste then. But I don't feel that's the case with him, is it?
Jim White and Simon Jordan, we're live with the courtesy of Selcourt's Where the Trade Goes. Chris Eubank Senior with us live at 12:30.
Get in the ring to win on talkSPORT.
Now, thanks to talkSPORT, your plans for this coming weekend could indeed be sorted. We're giving you the chance to win 2 tickets to the massive rematch between Eubank Junior and Ben live at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, Saturday, November the 15th. You'll get a night in a 5-star London hotel, £5,000 spending money, and that's all adding up to making it an unforgettable weekend. Get your mate ready, because here's how you can enter.
18 plus, UK excluding Northern Ireland. For a chance to win, text the word BOX to 83338 and you're in the draw. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. You must have the bill payer's permission, or you can enter for free by calling 0330 880 3338. All entries must be received by the 13th of November at 1 p.m. and you need to answer our call to win. This is a talkSPORT limited promotion. Full terms and conditions at talksport.com.
Chris Eubank Senior on the way. In the meantime, it's time for this.
It's showtime on talkSPORT with BetMGM. Get ready for the golden era of sports betting. Visit betmgm.co.uk or download the app. 18plusgambleaware.org.
Here we go. We're joined by Matt Gibson from BetMGM. And, of course, you know we're going to kick off with, Matt. Good afternoon to you. Eubank Junior versus Ben live in talkSPORT this Saturday. What are you thinking?
Yeah, afternoon, fellas. I must say that the last hour or so with Nigel Ben's been a cracking listen, no doubt. Chris Eubank Senior is going to be great coming up as well. I'll leave the expert analysis to Sean Martin and Simon to get into the main fight and the card on Thursday. But just an early look at the prices. Chris Eubank favourite at 11 to 20, the draw 15 to 1, which I certainly don't see happening between these two. Ben's the outsider at 29 to 20, probably suits his sort of demeanour and his attitude going into the fight. I think he quite likes being the underdog. He quite likes being the one that has to come out the pack and make something happen. I think it's going to be a fantastic fight, and you know, props to you guys for bringing it to not only the expert but maybe the more casual fan like me. This morning show has been cracking.
Oh, great, Matt. Thank you very much indeed. Where are we at with the championship, Matt? I mean, how are the relegated sides getting on?
Yeah, I mean, the lads always teasing me in the office that I need to really keep my eye on what's happening in the championship for maybe next year. So we do stay in touch with the champ. I mean, Coventry City flying as under Frank Lampard, but I don't think pre-season, I don't think any of us would have said that the relegated sides would be currently outside the top 6 after 14, 15 games. Ipswich are 7th, granted. But Southampton really struggling, turned over their manager. Leicester haven't quite clicked yet. Sheffield United were like, what were they, 2-3 minutes off getting promoted to the Premier League, turned over a manager and in the bottom 3. So there's loads of stories in the Championship, and I know you've just had Crookie on talking about Middlesbrough. It does look like Rob Edwards is going to go. We're not entirely sure of who replaces Rob Edwards. There's a few runners and riders. Carlos Corberán's in there. Gareth Southgate's been sort of named as a price. There's obviously Gerrard, O'Neill. People are out of work. How does this affect a football club, Simon? Because normally when a manager gets turned over, certainly the case studies that we've just seen in the Championship, normally when a manager leaves, it's because of bad results. Middlesbrough are flying. They're going to lose the manager. One of my best mates is a Borough fan. He was at the game the other day. They've gone from singing songs about how great they're doing, all the players, to telling Rob Edwards what they feel about him. Do you think this will really...
It destabilises. I had it precisely this top of the league with Steve Bruce, who went to Birmingham and destabilised our season. And that's because perhaps I didn't make the right choice, with all due respect. God rest his soul to Trevor Francis. It's about the next decision that you make. It's interesting you talk about the teams that have come down and the ones that are doing well and the ones that are not. If Ipswich win their game in hand, they go 4th. They stayed with their manager. It would arguably, you know, the two teams that came down in Southampton and Leicester were in a bit of chaos, because Leicester you didn't know whether Ruud van Nistelrooy was staying in situ. You couldn't work out what was happening there. And obviously Southampton, you know, had made an appointment changing from Russell Martin. That was a disaster, and you didn't know what going there. So it's no surprise that those two teams are probably struggling. But it destabilises, because not only do you lose the manager, you lose his backroom staff. All of a sudden, the messages that he's been able to impart during the pre-season are now messages that are changing, because unless you're going to get a carbon copy of him in the door, you've got a different voice saying different things to players, and different players will have different relationships with him. So it's not ideal. It's far from ideal.
Yeah.
Is the point is there a point on sticking to a manager and then sticking to what you know? You know, Frank, when he was at Coventry, he took him over in a really tricky position. He didn't necessarily have immediate impacts. You know, you look at the guys who are in at Stoke and Preston, Millwall, they've all taken a lot of time to get to where they need to. Do you think that maybe relegated sides or sides that have ambitions are too quick to like pull the trigger and get rid of managers? And
that's the money side of things, isn't it? I mean, if you look at the teams that got relegated, they didn't have a choice. I mean, the manager at Southampton was a disaster, and Leicester were all over the place and have been for a couple of years economically and challenged by the league and all kinds of governance. I mean, Frank did start Coventry relatively well, so he did get ahead of steam, and we know that he can manage in this division. And so he's proven his case with Derby previously. So, you know, there's no one size fits all. But good management is good management. But I feel sorry for the Middlesbrough fans. I do.
Yeah. On to the rugby and the Autumn Internationals, Matt.
Yeah, 3:10 Saturday, gents. It's a really good day of sport, isn't it? On Saturday, you've got racing from Cheltenham, you've got the rugby, and then of course the fight later on. 3:10, England All Blacks. I think it's been a while since England have been odds-on favourites to beat these lot. The 4-6 to win the game at Twickenham. The All Blacks 27-25 outsiders. England coming off the back of a decent win against Fiji. All Blacks were ran tight at Murrayfield, Jim, against Scotland. England are favourites, as discussed. Has not beat these lots since 2019. All Blacks won their last time out. Certainly, I'm not having England as odds-on favourites. I think the betting's probably a little bit closer than that. However, what we can be assured of, it's going to be a cracking sporting spectacle, whatever happens.
Terrific, Matt. Thank you very much indeed. Visit betmgm.co.uk. Download the app. 18+. BeGambleAware.org. Chris Eubank Senior about to join us.
It's showtime on talkSPORT with BetMGM. Keep things golden with responsible play at betmgm.co.uk. 18+, gambleaware.org.
Chris Eubank Senior is worried about possible long-term damage his son could suffer from his first fight against Conor Ben. Eubank Jr. is again coming down to 11 stone 6 pounds for this weekend's rematch. Eubank Senior calls it madness and says dehydration is dangerous. Both fighters went to hospital as a precaution after the first bout. Conor Ben told talkSPORT Eubank Jr. only posted about it to get sympathy.
He's made this 160 weight is pretty near enough his whole career, but he chose to miss it by, well, he didn't choose to, he was cutting it fine for sympathy vote, costing 500 grand. Then he was £3 under the rehydration limit.
Ben v Eubank Jr. is live on talkSPORT this Saturday night. Get all the build-up on the talkSPORT Boxing YouTube channel. Now, we understand that Columbus crew boss Wilfred Nancy is leading contender to become the new Celtic manager. Celtic are also looking at Bodo Glimt's Kjetil Knutsen, but Nancy is seen as more attainable at this stage. And Srian Botham's questioned the quality of England's Ashes preparation. Instead of playing warm-up games against state sides, Ben Stokes' team will play a game against the England B team ahead of the first test in Perth. England coach Marcus Trescothick says they're doing what they can.
With the volume of cricket that's played, you don't have the time for preparations like potentially playing 2 or 3 first-class games, which has happened in the class. I think you generally roll with a prep game.
Watch the unmissable rematch live this Saturday, only on DAZN.
If your hand never touches me again, you won't get it back.
I'm going to hit him round the face with an egg. His own team don't even like him.
You lot are in for a treat.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble! He's here! Big uppercut there, and a hook from Eubank as well. Conor Ben's a good mate of mine. I want to see him knock him out cold tonight. And away they go again, and they're throwing huge numbers of punches.
Lick him up, lick him up, lick him.
That was one of the greatest fights I've seen in a British ring for a long, long time.
Go for the rematch for the excitement, the history, and the big payday.
The procedure will be parliamentary. You guys will see.
Yeah, November 15th.
Oh boy, we cannot wait for this. Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Ben is live on Saturday night, live on talkSPORT, live on DAZN. We had an hour in the company of Nigel Ben. I am delighted to say, joining us now, former 2-weight world champion, father of Chris Eubank Jr. Chris Eubank Senior is in studio with Simon and myself this lunchtime. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Listen, here's the thing. Good news all round, because Chris Jr. has announced that he's going to be the father of twins. Grandpa.
Extraordinary.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yes, very good.
Good news again, is it?
Yes, it is indeed.
So you're with us now, and we have half an hour in your company, and I'm thrilled about that. Chris Eubank Jr. goes in against Conor again on Saturday night. I'm going to ask the same of you as I asked Nigel earlier on in the show this morning, Chris.
Before you go on, may I express something that is really true to me? May I?
Please do.
Yes, I'm Christopher Livingston Eubank. Thank you for inviting me on. Truly, I want to say to you that I am neither ego nor reason. I'm neither mind nor thought. I cannot be heard or cast into thought, nor by sight or smell ever caught. In light and wind I am not found, nor yet in earth and sky. Consciousness and joy incarnate, bliss of the blissful am I. I have no name, I have no life, I breathe no vital air. No elements have moulded me, no bodily sheath is my lair. I have no speech, no hands, no feet, no means of evolution. Consciousness and joy am I, and bliss in disillusion. I cast aside hatred and passion, I conquered delusion and greed. No touch of pride caressed me, so envy never did breed.
beyond all faiths, past reach of wealth, past freedom, past desire, consciousness and joy am I, and bliss is my attire. Virtue and vice, nor pleasure and pain are not my heritage, nor sacred texts, nor offerings, nor prayers, nor pilgrimage. I am neither food, nor eating, nor yet the eater am I. Consciousness and joy incarnate, bliss of the blissful am I. I have no misgivings of death, no chasms of race divides me. No parent ever called me child, no bond of birth did tie me. I am neither disciple nor master, I have no kin, no friend. Consciousness and joy am I, and merging with bliss is my end. Neither noble, knowledge nor knower am I, formless is my form. I dwell within the senses, but there is not my home.
How have you been,
ever serenely balanced, neither free nor bound. Neither free nor bound, consciousness and joy am I, and bliss is where I'm found. Now, it's a show.
That's by the way, all you teleprompt readers, you should be ashamed of yourself.
That was
You
wonderful.
just be able to recount all that. I don't know what the purpose. I don't know what the purpose of it was, but we are there now.
The purpose of it is always that we are entertaining the public. A little poetry is good, especially when it speaks exactly about the individual reciting it.
Right, my turn now. Chris, you were a strong critic of this fight first time, and for the rematch back in 2022, you claimed promoters were trying to murder your son, Chris Eubank Jr., regarding the weight clause. You called your son a disgrace for slapping an egg in Connor's face earlier this year. In spite of all this, you surprised many in April by turning up, and you were in Junior's corner. What would you say to people who'd suggest that Chris Eubank Senior, you're something of a hypocrite?
It's easily explained, so let me start. Within every individual, there are two entities. There is the ego, or the negative, and there is the good, or the super consciousness, or the God consciousness. Those two entities are within the one. I would have bet money that the fight wasn't going to happen. When he slapped the egg into the face of this young man in the face of Connor, I didn't bring him up like this. You're representing my name. I've worked hard to keep these statutes and so these standards. And so I was very, very disappointed. And as you would have seen, and as the public saw, I was not turning up to that fight, but that was my ego. Remember, within the one person, you have two entities. Now, because I've submitted to the superconscious, or the God mind, or the good mind, because I've submitted, it always wins. And so effectively, it set me up, because I didn't think I was going.
You didn't think you were going?
I mean, you can see interviews. There's an interview I did just before the fight where, we're walking out, and I actually say, if the fight happens, I really didn't think it was going to happen.
Right.
But I was there.
Where you turned up?
Yes.
Were you paid to turn up?
But paid? You can't buy me. I don't work that way.
But were you paid?
You were paid. So hold on. So Simon has come in there, and he's actually now he wants to press the point. I was not paid a penny, and I didn't take a penny. I was offered money. I would never take a money. You know why? Because integrity doesn't work that way. That's why I'm done, Gorgon. That's why I am trusted. That's why I am loved. Why? Because I am true.
Nigel Ben told us you got $250,000 to turn up for the fight.
I wouldn't say that he is. I would have to say he's mistaken. If someone told him that, then they're lying to him. Now,
what were you offered?
What was I offered? Okay, let me see. Nothing, because, and the reason I was offered nothing is because you can't bring me into that conversation, because I will crush you intellectually. Spiritually, I will crush you. You don't, I'm not, there's a word called harlot. I'm not this. You can't speak to me about things like this. Hold on. I cannot be brought.
Put it to you, though. Chris.
I don't mind.
It's an allegation that was made.
I'm very happy that
you wouldn't have turned. You were turning up, but you might not have turned up had you not been offered any dough.
Let me tell you, okay. You've seen me in fights where, I should have quit, but I didn't. Why? Because the consciousness of the spirit, it wouldn't allow me to quit. It wouldn't allow me to.
All right, so the popcorn headline of economics, you were very, very robust against the principle of the fight. So let's put aside the argument about economics, about where you are paid or not, right, and move into the consciousness of the fight itself. You were against the entire principle of it. You talked about legalised murder. You talked about your son being boiled down to a weight class, which, by the way, he's fought at since 2018, when he last fought at super middleweight against George Groves. So there was nonsense in that.
Don't say nonsense. You don't know what you're talking. I'll tell you why you don't know what you're talking about, because you don't know boxing.
If he fights at middleweight, since 2018, and at the time people said he was too small to fight against George Groves at super middleweight, so he fights at a weight class for 7 years. The only boiled down argument you had, Chris, was when they wanted him at 157. That's your boiled down argument.
I cannot argue with you. You do not know what you're talking about because you do not know boxing.
So he can't fight 160.
I speak from the inside out. You are speaking from the outside in. You don't know what you're talking about. So can
he fight at 160 or not?
Again, the advice I would have given him would not to be fighting at that weight anymore. It is dangerous. What
do you think of Bomac's observations? Because we had Bomac in the studio.
Don't talk to me about people.
You don't like him as a trainer?
No, what do you mean? I love everybody. The point is this.
You don't.
I do love everybody. Okay, the point is this. Do not.
Well, even the people that you were going to murder your son, according to you.
And I have to love them.
Or why? To redeem their souls.
Yes. They'll come around. They will come around.
Right. So let me ask you a question about the health and wealth side of things. Why is this constant argument about Chris, your son's weight clause, and the dehydration issues, when he's choosing that? He's choosing to put wealth over his own health in terms of the £1 million clause that he could easily waive, rehydrate, and yet plays on that all the time, and you appear to be playing on it as well. Why are we being asked?
I appear to be playing on what?
Well, the idea that he's being put in the situation, in the most recent state that you said, that no one's paying attention to what's happening here.
Yeah, that's
no one's paying attention to what's going on here. But you're running. Your son is running towards it.
Yeah, but
he's running towards that fire.
Okay, and he won't listen. He won't listen to the advice I would give him.
Right.
Well, don't say that I'm a part of that or this. I'm not.
Well, no, you're part of the narrative that's suggesting that it's somehow a problem, given the fact that your son's got a free mind. He's conscious of his own well-being, and he's running towards it.
But I've talked to you about you being the journalist that you are.
You have told me that, yeah.
Okay, hold on. Let me just make the point.
Yep.
Okay, if you hold the people who have jobs to keep us safe to account, hold them to account.
Through choice, your son's choice.
No, but you're saying Are you saying that my son has
a choice?
That actually there isn't any choice. He shouldn't be fighting at the weight because it's against the rules.
What rules?
The rules of weight.
He's a 160 fighter, has been for 7 years.
And Conor Ben isn't.
He's a 147 pumped up welterweight. What's it got to do with the price of cheese?
What it has to do with the price of cheese is the fact that he is 147. He isn't 160.
Well, we're not talking about Conor. We're talking about Chris.
But
you're the one that's saying boiling Chris down is the problem.
Now you're being hypocritical.
No, I'm not. I'm asking you to account for what you've said.
What I'm accounting for is the fact that the weights are wrong. If one is at 147 and one is at 160...
You went out weight classes.
Again, this is not the point. You know what? I should have been protected. I went up...
From yourself?
Yes,
right.
We're fighters.
Right. So are you saying it should be outlawed by the industry? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
that's what you're saying.
No, that's the rules of
no weight class moves.
That's right.
So when Roy Jones went up all the weight classes and was a champion in each one of them,
yes.
When you've got other fighters that have done it and been elite in these weight classes, are you arguing against that?
I'm not arguing against it. I'm telling you it's against the rules. And
well, it's not, is it? Otherwise, it's against what you think is right.
No, it's against the rules, and the rules says it's not right. And I'm saying to you that people flout, and the organisations and the authorities are flouting the rules. Tell me, am I wrong?
Well, if the rules, the principles of it, the moral argument,
the
moral argument, or the literal argument.
What you're saying to me is that, Chris Eubank can do that. But yes, he can.
Manny Pacquiao could do it. Look at them all. They've all done it.
But that is against the rules.
It's not, though, is it? Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to do it.
Now,
it's against the principles
now
of
that's where your job would come in.
Hold them to account.
Hold these guys to account.
That's a different discussion.
It's not a different discussion. It is not.
Change the rules then.
No, stick to the rules.
We're going around in circles with this.
No, we're not going around in circles. If, you are a strong operator, more so than you know. Okay, you know what I'm saying is right.
In point, I do, yeah. To some point, I do, yeah. To some extent.
Hold these guys to account. Hold the authorities to the account. The Boxing Board of hold them to account. I am not wrong because I'm standing on the rules.
Right.
You're saying to me that Junior, he's he's 36 years old. He's his own man. Yes, and so he can do it. But he's flouting the rules, and the authorities are allowing him.
You're saying they're allowing them. Right, okay. Chris, I want to put this to you. You said after the fight at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, this is what you said. I saw a person who was my son between life and death in the back of an ambulance. When he got to the hospital, they were able to give him morphine and stabilise him. But Junior was touch and go because of dehydration. The promoter, Eddie Hearn, is openly trying to damage my son, and the public watch this, and still no one says anything. They are silent. It's sad people are blind to it, and now my son is in the same position again. He's walking into a trap, and there's nothing I can do to stop him. This is what Nigel Ben said about that.
His son, first of all, his son's over 21. He's a big man. He don't need his dad.
Yeah.
He can decide for himself.
I agree.
And he's chose to do that. So everything falls at his door. Yeah. Don't fall at anybody else's door. He has the opportunity to say, you know what, I don't want this fight unless we change it. But no, he stood by that and said, you know what, I'm happy. That was him.
No, I'm with him, mate.
So I can't say, well, it's all down to Chris Jr. Not his dad, because the dad always saying everyone wants to hurt his son. No, speak with your son, because everything about them too, I'm sorry, it's just full of negativity. You had the opportunity to choose it from the beginning.
He's right, isn't he? Is he right in that you spread a lot of negativity about this fight?
Negativity. If sticking to the rules is negative, then yes, I did. I spoke a lot of negativity because I'm a man, I stand on the rules. As long as there are rules, then that's where you're going to see my face, and that's where I'm going to stand, and no one's going to move my view. No one.
And your view is the promoter Eddie Hearn trying to damage my son.
I've never mentioned this person's name. I've never mentioned his name. Now, do you accept what I've just said to you?
Yeah.
Because
yeah, I do.
Okay, I've never used this person's name.
But do you concur with your son's view then? Because your son has. Your son's been very explicit in his blaming of the promoter for the circumstances that manifested themselves. Do you concur with that view?
Of course.
Right. Based upon what? The fact that the stadium itself is configured in a certain way, based upon the obligation is upon the venue, having owned a football stadium and having put events on there, I know where the obligation falls. So why would you make the case and the argument, given you concur with your son, that somehow the promoter conspired to damage your son's health?
The fight that was to happen the first time.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was October the 8th.
Yeah.
2023?
22, I think.
Okay, well, whatever it was, okay. Here's the point.
At a different weight, by the way. 157.
157.
Which you didn't like, and that was a boil down mentality. And I agree with you.
No, but hold on. Here's the thing. It came back around to say, the promoter said, we did not say this. He accepted the 157. He accepted that he would boil himself down to 157. Now, the promoter is a man, and he has children. Now, a man is supposed to say, sorry, I can't allow you to do that, because you will end up losing your life or your health. I can't allow you to do that. But he allowed him to...
Okay, go back to the question. Go back to the question of the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and the ambulance.
And the ambulance. Where are we at with that?
I don't know about that.
Where are we at with that?
Hold on. I'm not.
I mean,
I'm not involved in.
Chris Jr. shared footage of his ambulance allegedly being blocked post-fight.
I am not.
Yet Nigel Ben was on here a short time ago, Chris, saying that your son, Chris Eubank Jr., got to hospital before Connor and Nigel.
Yeah, I saw Connor later on in the hospital. Yes. I didn't. Listen, they got the damage that they both went through. Again, what you don't see from my side being on the inside is that the damage of that fight, what it did to the two of them, it shows up with Junior in 3 to 4 years.
Indeed. No doubt.
But no one cares about that.
doubt.
No one cares about that. And all these things I keep on saying about the weight, you're not going to prove me wrong. I've seen this. I've been through this. I've lived through this.
And that's one of the questions I think is right to pose, the empirical data surrounding fighters coming down to weight classes and going up to weight classes and what happens at later life. That sort of report does need to be produced and it does need to be shown. And that's the Boxing Board of Control's responsibility, so I agree with you.
Hold them to it.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
Mr. Jordan, they are not going to abide by any rules unless people like you, journalists, hold them to account. Shame these people, get them out of their positions because they are dangerous to the fighters.
I understand your point.
Chris, let me ask you, as a former fighter and a wonderful one at that, what did you make of the first fight? What did you make of Chris's performance? The fact that he won it? What did you make of Connor's performance?
It was an earth-moving performance, both from both participants. I mean, Junior standing toe-to-toe from the 6th round. This is legendary behavior. But there's a price. No one talks about that. The spectators, they look, they say, oh, and they get on with their lives. The fighters are then left to actually deal with it. Let me ask you a question. You talk about the care of fighters. How does a man lose his life at 46 years old? Ricky Hatton, how do you lose your life at 46 years? We need looking after. Okay, we need looking after. And the Board of Control, they're supposed to be, let's say, our foundation. If they're not going to do the job, Simon.
They're not funded,
okay?
Are they?
Look, they're not funded.
They're not funded properly.
Okay, but
that's on the industry itself and the fighters themselves.
Fight for them. Fight for them.
You ask people like Paul Smith, who set up a union, and other people like Barry McGuigan that set up funds that the fighters want to contribute, and they don't want to contribute. They don't want to pay towards it.
Okay, the fighters don't.
Yeah.
Okay, so then get the public. What I'm saying to you is this: help the situation. Otherwise, people.
I don't disagree with you.
People like me can say, then what are you doing in boxing? Why are you talking about boxing? Why do you have this position in boxing? You didn't fight.
No, true. It's like having an opinion on politics. You weren't a politician, but I've heard you talk about things in society. Just because you haven't done something doesn't mean you can't talk about it, right?
What do you mean politics?
We all talk about life. I've heard you talk about things in life.
I talk about truth.
You talk about your version.
What politicians? My version
of it. Your opinion on it. No, don't take it off subject. What you're saying. Hold on. You can't say to somebody because they haven't done something they're allowed to have an opinion on it, because ultimately that's the weakest argument. I don't know what you know. Correct. But I should also be challenging the orthodoxy by pushing back, which is what he does, which is what I do. Whether you like it or agree with it, no one can do what you've done or be what you've been because we haven't done it. But it doesn't mean that you're that weak-minded that you'll turn around to me and say, because you haven't done something, you can't talk about it. You're better than that.
I'm telling you,
I'm better than that.
I'm saying to you, you have a position that perhaps you shouldn't have.
Agreed. I agree with that.
I didn't finish.
I know what you're going to say, but
you have a position that perhaps you shouldn't have. But in the position, use it. Earn the position. Earn the right to actually speak on our behalf.
Chris Jr. and Connor Ben will be in the ring at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium again on Saturday night, and both want to be there, don't they?
Money.
Yes. They both accept the risk, though, don't they? You accept the risk, and then you earn the millions that go with it.
Listen to the narrative. Listen to the narrative.
Am I right?
Listen to the narrative. They are both there. They are taking the risks. The rules are supposed to protect themselves from themselves.
But why didn't those same rules apply to you when you stepped up to fight Carl Thompson?
They should have, but then the promoters, you see, they have a position where...
Whoever told you what to do?
Pardon?
Whoever told you what to do?
There were, again, okay, so understand, no, this is very, okay, I've listened to the point. Okay, I went up to cruiserweight. The board of control should have stopped me. There is no way I would have refused that fight. I needed to be protected from myself. Fighters need to be protected from themselves.
Okay,
if you say to a fighter,
I get the point you make.
I fought.
Good point.
Listen. Michael Watson and I fought for the super middleweight championship of the world back in 1991. Okay, we both came in. The fight was made at 11 stones 10. When they said the fight is made at 11:10, not 12 stones, privately.
Yeah.
I, as a fighter, I say, I don't care what weight.
I do, yeah.
I don't care what weight. We need to be looked after, and if we're not looked after, we will actually take the law in our own hands.
That we shouldn't take.
And in so doing, we are putting our lives in danger.
Yeah.
If you don't protect us,
I take your point.
us.
I take your point.
Thank you very much.
Chris Eubank is going to be on Top Boxing with Simon. You can see it at 8 o'clock tonight, the whole thing. Chris Eubank Senior. One final point from me to you. Irrespective of what we're going to see again in the ring on Saturday night, Chris, you're going to be there again.
Let me tell you this. Love. This is how you win. If I speak in the tongues of men, and of angels, but I have not love, I would be but a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy...
No more poetry, please, Chris.
This is not poetry. Okay. And if you interrupt me, you're going to actually make it extend. So I'll start again. I'll start again.
We're at 1 o'clock.
Okay.
You've got 30 seconds, Chris.
50 seconds.
Yeah. 30.
I'm dealing with love. That's why I've won. That's why I'm winning. Okay? Why? Because love is patient.